Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the show. I am Seahawks Brendan Nelson, and as we do twice a week, every week during the season, we got some Seahawks stuff to talk about this week. This week, we have a win. We won a game, got it done. Another home win, win against a division rival. Knock your rivals down, pick yourself up on the way. Gotta love it. And the way in which it happened was pretty interesting because it wasn't like the first 5 games of the year, really. We saw a completely different Seahawks team out there, and it felt a little more comfortable because it was more in line with what I was expecting from this year. So maybe that's the team we're going to get the rest of the way. I don't know, but we're going to break it all down. I am joined by Brandon of the Hawks Nest. Welcome in. How you doing?
I am doing awesome, man. To get to celebrate a Seahawks victory. Would have been nice also if we got our Mariners to get through that series with the Astros, but we can look forward to next year. But I did forget it before we were just talking beforehand. I wanted to say congratulations, man. You crossed the big 10,000 threshold. So fantastic job on your part. Very well earned. You worked so hard to get up to that spot. And it's so great to see. So awesome to hear as I saw the little posting on my deal there. That was great.
Right. Yeah. Actually, we already have a couple of super chats in today talking about exactly that. I hit 10,000 early this morning. Go Hawks 2022. Thank you for the $20. Congrats, Brendan. Brandon, you're next. I know you're, you're not too far away from it either. Like you're
We're
moving on up.
we're rounding around. We're making moves. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
getting we're
You've
getting
got
there.
like 3 different YouTube channels. If you add them all up, you're probably getting pretty close.
I am. If you did put all those together, I'd probably be a titch over 10,000 if I threw them all into one
Yeah.
hat.
Right. And we also have R. Sanchez. Thank you for the $10. Congratulations, Brendan. Congratulations, Brendan, on 10K. Take my money. Okay, I can do that. I got no problem doing that. But yeah, 10K was this morning, and the video I posted this morning, by the way, is already about to become my most viewed video ever
Oh, there we
after
go.
less than 24 hours. It's
Maybe
going to take about 12 hours, actually.
maybe the algorithm, YouTube algorithm bump, like you click into that 10K and something kind of clicks in with YouTube. We're like, okay, we're gonna finally, give you enough bump here on that side of it. But it's folks, and I don't want to put you in an awkward position, Brendan, but it's such a hard thing to get to this spot. So few do on YouTube, and Brendan's out there every day grinding on this stuff. So if you're not subbed and you're just listening on to this stuff, do get subbed. It's a small little thing, but it's a big thing. As I know, he's now got an eye on 20,000, no doubt, if not more. So um, I just it's wonderful to see, and it's great on the Seahawks community and supporting good content creators like you, Brendan, because you earned it. Definitely, man.
Right. Okay, so turning the page and taking a look at this game a little bit. First, you were there. I know you were
Oh
there.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So before we talk about anything with the game, I want to ask you, this Seahawks fan base that goes to these games, historically been a pretty great group of guys, pretty great crowd.
You're gonna pull some sour stuff. Okay. Okay, Brendan. All right, let's go. Yep. Yep. I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going. Okay.
Okay. Last year, when the team kind of went bad,
hmm
they tuned out pretty quickly. They stopped going to the games. The crowd was not very supportive of the team when the game started. You had like I think there was that one game where they started throwing snowballs at Seahawks players because they had just blown some ridiculous game they had no business blowing. It was not a great home crowd last year, but how was it on Sunday for this Cardinals game?
I certainly think that you've got to give some of the fans a little bit of credit because they were probably like myself coming in there off the heels of the 18 inning affair in with the Mariners the previous night that had everybody at home at 10 and trying to get back up the next day. And you're definitely in a fog, especially with all that smoke. But I thought that the fans were overall very impressive, loud as they needed, fairly loud. I will say this, that the continued trend I've seen over the last 7 years when I go into that stadium, Brendan, is that it's not that there's not enough fans that aren't engaging. There's a lot of people engaging, but you need the total of the voice of the stadium involved. I come from within the 80s. When you went to that stadium, you look to your right, you look to your left, you look behind you, you look forward. Everybody was screaming and yelling, and as they should. They didn't need to be coaxed to do so. I had a good contingent up in the front, and part of me in the spot where there's just a whole like cluster of 20 people that just were just sitting there and they just didn't want to get up, and if you even sitting there, they didn't want to be loud just sitting there. They didn't open their mouth, just sat there quiet the whole time wearing their Seahawks jerseys. And I appreciate that you're there to just kind of watch and engage, but like, as I say, there's a tradition involved with this. This is part of what separates us as a fan base. And it's a little disappointing to see that I can see these little groups within that just, and everybody else around them is screaming and they've got their veins sticking out of their throat. And I've given up trying to coax people on. They don't want to do it. I let them be. They're going to be, they paid their ticket. They can enjoy it however they want, but it does kind of suck. And if you are in that stadium, be one of those people up on your feet, screaming, helping this team out. There were moments you could feel that it helped the team out. There were moments with flags and whatnot where the Cardinals couldn't get their stuff set and put together right. And it would be great if we can kind of get that reignited, because it's not quite where it was, like even let's say in 2012 when the Fail Mary game that I went in there for. To me that was a louder affair.
Yeah, it seemed pretty good on the TV. It makes sense that the team this year wouldn't draw out the old Seahawks crowd because it's a team that's in a little bit of a transitionary period. But I was wondering how it compared to like last year, where it really seemed like the crowd just, once the season went bad, they just checked out.
No, in that respect, they were engaged. People were not waiting just a third down to be loud. They were up on their feet. People were enthused. There was not even a fleck of booze in the crowd at all. So there was none of that. There was no negativity to be had anywhere in any respect. So in that, the vibe was good. It was people were energized by what they were seeing and encouraged. So overall good. I don't want to let that bad, paint it too much. That's my own little personal, picadillo on that one.
Right. Okay, so now for the game itself, and let's get this super chat in here real quick. Y2KHA, thank you, $1.99. Congrats. Is anyone from the DL sustainable? And let's start there with this defense, because they played their best game of the year by far. They played an excellent game, 3 points on the first drive of the game, and then nothing the whole rest. So let's start up front, because that was the big thing. The defensive line and the pass rush in general was actually good in this game. I think they had 6 sacks on Kyler. I think they had multiple pressures just beyond that. I think they played the run better than they had played all year, probably. Eno Benjamin didn't do anything that whole game.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you answer this question? Let's start with that. Is anyone from the DL sustainable? Because I think pretty much everybody on that defensive line at least played well against the Cardinals, but what's sustainable?
Hard to say about the sustainable part of it, because there's guys that are showing you improvement. You're seeing some slight improvements from Poona Ford. Brian Monet's stepped up in the last couple of weeks. Miles Adams is only getting like 12 snaps this past week, but even in those 12 snaps, he's giving you a little bit of something. Those are definitely bright spots. To call them sustainable points is hard, because this is such a small amount of data that we have that they're this decent. Let's see them against a little bit more competition across the board, especially considering how bad they looked when we looked at them in other competition with those guys earlier on in this season. What's most sustainable about this is getting away from that thing that to my eyes, Brendan, I'd be interested to hear if you saw the same thing, but I'm not seeing as many of the 4-man fronts, 2-man fronts we saw. Let's call it the 2-man front. Seems like that's been cast away, or if they're going to run it, it's going to be run on like a 3rd and long situation where there's absolutely no way you're going to have to face a run. And that seems to be what I'm looking at from them in that respect of it. So that part's sustainable to me. If they want to stay more in the 3-4 defense and stop giving these huge gaping holes within the context of the interior of the offensive line, defensive line, then yes, that's sustainable. But I think it's very much too early to put our hat on anybody really on that line until we get a couple more games. They were so bad out the gate.
Right. I noticed early in the game we were using some 2-man fronts. And then as the game went on, the only time we pulled it out was when the Cardinals went empty, when there was no running back on the field.
That's pretty much what I was seeing in my eyes too. It was a tiny bit mixed in, but nowhere near as much with the preponderance as it was being used early on in this year in earlier games. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that it was part take a step forward. I think Cardinals did lose Justin Pugh, one of their most important interior guys
for the year,
early on in this game. And that definitely was going to lighten things up for them in the interior part. But last week you played against the Saints and you had a couple of moments where those guys showed up. They weren't in that consistent point like they were this week. So,
right. But I will say for my part, I think Shelby Harris, he's a good player. There's no doubt in my mind he's a good player, right? Like
Yeah.
he was
I
good for years in Denver.
Yeah. I mean, what makes the defensive line work if it's going to work is not that we need a star player. That'd be great to have right now. But what will make it work is that you can run a rotation out there and everybody can be solid. Nobody's going to be a liability out there. And you can get some occasional pass rush from them from somewhere when it's a kind of next man to take his turn, sort of. You don't have to be that guy. I need you to, 8 quarterback pressures in a game, but at least get me a couple moments when you can be that next guy up, like everyone's sort of taking their turn, like you pull out one of those Costco lines and you're taking one of those numbers. It's sort of like that. And they haven't gotten to that spot yet, Brendan. It'll be an Al Woods flash, and then 2-3 plays go by, nobody's doing nothing, guys are getting blown off the ball, and then you'll see Brian Monet get upfield and do something on a particular play. So it's just got to get more into the consistency realm with all those guys in that aspect, and it's a step forward. But Cardinal offensive line on the inside is not necessarily a crew you want to hang your hat on saying that's sustainable because of what we did against them.
Yeah, they didn't have Rodney Hudson at all in this game, right?
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, that's and again, Pew goes down. It's like, what are they dealing with at that point? So they're good at the tackles, relatively good at the tackles, but a little different story on the inside.
But to add on to answering this question, I thought Monet played an amazing game on Sunday. I don't know if that was your impression, but he was timing the snap really well. And Monet's an interesting guy. I like him. He was probably one of the biggest players in the NFL. And he's had games where he looks dominant. It just only happens every now and then. I could see Monet being sustainable. Other than that, like I look at Puna and I go, he's just not a fit. He's a good player, but it doesn't work here. Miles Adams, we haven't seen enough. I can't say anything about that really either way at this point. And I mean, Al Woods didn't even play in this game. I know Al Woods is good, but Al Woods is also not going to be here much longer because he's 88 years old or whatever. So yeah, I would say those two pieces could be sustainable. Shelby and Monet, but the rest I'm not so sure.
I'd agree with that. I think that there's a reason why 3-4 defensive ends typically are in more of a 6'4", 275 mold, and that Puna's not in that mold. And if he's not going to be to kind of the prerequisites of the position from a size standpoint, then he's going to have to overcome it with extra skills that can overcome the reason why you have those guys stout like that in the first place. I think we saw early on why that's the case. Those guys do have to play with a little bit more in space. They can't just rely on there being another shoulder on the other side of them to take the heat off. They're going to get double teamed at times. They're going to have to be really strong at the point of attack. And I don't know if Puna maybe just seems like since he's gone to the 3 tech, his ability to hold up at the point of attack off double teams is not the same as it was when he first walked in the league.
Yeah, so that's the defensive line. Definitely a better game, but they've got more to prove. Let's talk about the
one last thing. They're doing a better job with the one gapping stuff. They're doing a better job getting uphill in those pass rush, not maybe getting caught back into more of the 2 gap kind of system they used to run. So that's one thing you're seeing on those pass rush. Monet going and attacking it, Puna attacking it. That's part of what got them those sacks there, was that they were just getting uphill off the snap, like you said, timing the snap and going, not getting so caught up in, well, I can go, but I can't go all the way because I got to get back over to this thing. Yeah, think about it, but make sure that you're really first committing to that first sort of step, so to speak.
By the way, just to mention it real quick, that one play where Miles Adams is running onto the field at the snap and then he just chucks Zach Ertz.
I'm putting it up tonight on my channel, actually. I'm going to put a video up for tonight on that.
Yeah, is that actually one of the most cerebral plays that you've seen from a defensive lineman in a while? Like he's thinking like, okay, how can I affect this play in some way because I'm not in position? Like
it is both cerebral and it's pissed off, which is the beauty of it. Because he's also angry because he knows darn well that he's not going to be able to get any kind of monochroma pass rush generated on that particular play. Like you got to be on the line and go to get back there with Kyler Murray, especially. So he knows that. So he's kind of in an effort. At least let me jack somebody up here, and he does so. But then it ends up benefiting out by him doing so, and it proved to be be a benefit to the play where you can. And that was what. That play was completely stopped. That whole play, it's probably a completed pass if he doesn't chuck him at the line. It's a completed touchdown and changes the whole course of that game if he doesn't make that move and do that in that moment. Very heady play there by Miles Adams, though. It was made the heady play of the game, you could say, and him doing that. I think the Cardinals had that. I think they had that drawn up, Brendan. I think that they would kind of set that play up a little bit with how Kyler was set back and just ready to let it go deep. He was rarely throwing deep all game. And those moments that they were deciding to take more of those chunk plays, it was kind of on moments where it seemed like it wasn't like what he does with DeAndre, where he's like, he's down there somewhere. I'll throw it. He'll be down there some. It was more of like, okay, this is now the moment we're going to take our shot down the field and try to hit this. And Ertz seems to be more than Hollywood was their big play guy there.
Mhm. The Snail, thank you for the $12. It's week 6. Gotta say, I'm getting my legs stretched out in preparation for the victory lap I'm going to take on the Smart 12s Team 3 Let Russ Cook crowd who've been saying Pete Carroll held Russ back. Are we going to start on the Russell stuff yet? We just barely started talking about this game, and we gotta, we're going to spend like 48 minutes on Russ,
Oh,
right?
I know. Hey, I'm here for it, man. I'm with Snail. I'm just kind of look. I'm not gonna knock the people that were pro Russ. I get where they were coming from, but I am going to enjoy the fact that we get to be right on this one. It means so many nice things for our organization and our franchise moving forward. And I, you know, Russ has also made this a little easy as well as getting to this point of being happy for this situation a little bit. But no, we can let's dive in. Let's pull the layers apart on this one.
Yeah, so the video I posted this morning that is going to become my most viewed video ever within 12 hours was a video about Russell Wilson. I think after the trade happened, I kind of said to myself, I'm not really going to talk about the Russell stuff that much.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll make a video once every month about how things are going, but I'm not going to turn my channel into like the ex-boyfriend who can't stop scrolling through the Instagram of the person I was in a relationship with. I don't want to be that. Based off what the people want, I guess I should have just been making 8 Wilson videos a day.
Well, I'm definitely planning on doing one, man, and not just for years. I was going to do one on the like as a talk to Bronco fans, which will be sort of I'm going to do a video that's explaining to them the situation of what's happened. It's going to be like they just got hit over the head and be like, it's okay, you know. So I'm going to do a little video in the same kind of vein of things. But we're arrived at a point, Brendan, where I think you're on solid ground to do so. That's the most important part about this.
Mm.
I did watch your video. And I think what you said about, well, maybe there was a little bit of you're going, well, in hedging, this could be something that turns down the road. And it doesn't. And that's going to be a little bit what maybe my video piggybacks off of where your initial message was, okay, is that in that here's why. Here's really some depth of why you go into these reasons beyond what you got into a lot of them as well. But like something you didn't mention, the mallet finger. Why is this deep ball not working as much? This is kind of detail you don't learn until 15 years down the line, where Russ will be like, well, if I really be honest with you, I could barely feel anything at the tip of my finger. And I've had people in my chat talk to me about that injury and sustaining that very same injury. And he goes out there and sustains it, which you go, okay, he's got medical science and we've got all the modern inventions to speed the healing process up, and they'll put him in the hyperbaric chamber and he'll be great. But yeah, then he comes back a little prematurely versus where science and the doctors would tell him to come back too, right? Doctors wouldn't be telling him to come back a couple weeks after surgery and be thrown. Ideally, they'd say, okay, work it, rehab it, but let's not get it back there to the high volume amount of throwing with the ball like you were before. Let's let it actually fully heal. Bones don't heal that fast unless I'm misunderstanding the way that this stuff really does heal, at least fully. Instead, he came back fast, didn't feel right, didn't throw right. And maybe that could have affected you long term as far as your ability to throw on that throwing hand, especially on those touch throws. He had such big hands, Brendan. It was like it's the jump shooter that can let that ball go all the way up out of his hand and get it even all the way in, where it's like he's even controlling it off the tips of his fingers a little bit because his hands are so big and his fingers are so long to be able to do it. And he's lost a little bit of that control with it that he relied upon when he's going deep. So this stuff's there's a lot of reasons why this is going to continue. We've talked a lot about this in the past, but it is just about time to take the lap, because I think you looked at the schedule. It's not getting easier on the schedule. IR players across the board. Offensive line's not going to get any better pass protecting. You already lost your best pass protector, if you could call him that in the first place.
Yeah.
And so, enjoy this, Seahawks fan. We had to be on the bad side of the trade with Jamal Adams, right? We've had to hear the Jets fans rubbing our face in it like a puppy that's just peed on the floor. Hey, it's nice for us to take the Bronco and rub its face on the floor and puppy pee, whatever.
Yeah, but about, like the game last night, obviously that's fresh in everyone's mind because it happened yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy who's in my Discord, Green 80. He's probably in the room right now, but he made the observation that the Chargers, most of what they run in coverage is exactly the same. They run man on one side and quarters on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what they do constantly. And
With a cover two shell look.
Yeah, anyone should be able to solve that. Like, it should be pretty trivial to solve that. Just hit your crossers, and he can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. It's not about the finger. It's not about the now hamstring and shoulder and all these other things. It's the fact that the Chargers are giving him very simple defensive looks. And by the way, that defense is bad. Like, the Chargers defense was bottom 5 last year. And so far this year, before yesterday's game, it was bottom 3, bottom 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they're running these very simple concepts. And he can't figure it out. And that's the thing that's really the problem here, because some of these physical abilities are not coming back. Like, when Peyton Manning had his final year when he was 39, he was terrible, but he kept winning games at the end. He had like 7 game-winning drives that year. I think most of his starts ended with him driving down at the end to win the game, because he still understood how to read a defense and figure out where the holes were. And by the end of the game, he could finally, find those soft spots. And we were just talking about it in the Discord last night about how all they're doing is running quarters on one side and man on the other side, and he's not figuring it out. That's the part that is crazy.
Well, as I said for a long period of time before Russell Wilson was traded, and as I've continued to maintain, Russell's issues are not always physical here. Yes, the fact he's lost some ability to scramble around the pocket's big, and maybe he's lost a mile or two an hour on his fastball. That certainly could be a possibility here. But really, the big issues lie on stuff from the head up, and ability to process, and ability to assess, ability to control things, throw with anticipation, understand. I still saw times last night where he wouldn't know where the blitz is coming from. How often have you seen Geno Smith being fooled on a backside blitz he didn't see coming? It's Geno comes up there, and I watched the telecast again today after watching it live, and he's coming up with the thing, and the announcer's even going, "Oh yeah, he's running a dummy call here to try to bring the blitz up so he can see it's coming and then get the protection right." And the guys didn't see it as acknowledging Geno doing that, and Russ just didn't do that consistently. He could do it from time to time, but he was not going to be able to consistently do it. And it exposes him, and it stops drives in their tracks, and you get behind the chains very often at that point in time. You spoke about the crossers. I saw this with Kyler Murray, and I'm going to tell you, I saw it up from my perspective. I could see it exact as day, exact as if I was sitting on the 50-yard line, Brendan. It was just like that, because I had pretty good seats, and I could see pretty closely what was happening. And what Kyler has is a problem, and Russell's got to have the same issue. It's why they don't throw short and over the middle. They cannot see. I'm right behind them in the end zone from the bottom floor here, Brendan, right where I'm looking on. And there's spots where you can see where the receiver's coming across. You've seen it a couple times with Kobe yesterday in coverage, where the receiver would be like Hollywood Brown breaking open, but it's directly in front of the offensive line or all the traffic of the offense and defensive line. Can't see Kyler, can't see Kyler, can't see Kyler. And then he breaks free out here to where Kyler can actually get an angle to see him. And then he tries to throw it late. And a light bulb went over my head. This was before the Russell game later the night. That's just what Russell would do. I can't see it. Okay, now I'm going to see it. Now I'm going to throw it. But in the way the play is drawn up with the X's and O's, that's too late. That ball has to be there earlier. You have to have that ball out, because now the defender has a chance to catch up on the play and knock it away, which is what Kobe Bryant did on a couple of different plays in this game, where it was just like that, where it's coming across. And so you can't be, as a quarterback, recognizing it that late. He just can't see the stuff. He's being asked to run a West Coast offense, which, like I also said, he can't run that. That's not Russell's game here, that you're not going to be able to do it, because he can't make those short and intermediate throws consistently. So it's going to continue. This is a part of why, Brendan, it continues on. There is not really a hope here to fix it, because he's never shown the willingness to really embrace this part in his game. He's not going to go down into the basement of Broncos facility and spend the next 3 weeks suddenly fast forwarding all this stuff that he needs to figure out in his game, because he's never taken responsibility for it, which of course we've heard in the accountability realm of things from his former teammates, right? Let's start putting 2 and 2 together a little bit here. You've got a player who's got things that he could seemingly have control in his ability to execute, but who is not doing so. Why? He's supposed to have this marvelous work ethic, but that's all work ethic related stuff. How do you learn when the blitz is coming? You're watching film. How do you know how to deal with it? You've got your call set. He's using the same damn hand signals this year, Brendan, in the first game as he used last year. Is that a detailed centric guy? Is that a guy who's going through and doing all those little details you talked about Peyton Manning doing at the end of his career to squeeze that last bit of his career out of him? I don't think so. And I'm
clearly not.
And one last point, you're 100% right on the theory here that these quarterbacks can play into their 40s here. Let's really pop our brakes on this one. Yeah, You've got your Brett Favre's, your Aaron Rodgers, your Tom Brady, who's obviously really making everybody view the situation in a completely ridiculous fashion and unrealistic fashion. But you also have guys like Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger and Tony Romo, who, as they got into their mid-30s, variety of different reasons, but those guys started to fall apart or break down or become much less of what they were. So it's much more of what you usually get. It's why they say Father Time is undefeated, not undefeated when you get to your 40s, undefeated in any sport historically when you get to your right at the end of your early 30s. Right as you go from about 33, 34, and Brendan, how old is Russell Wilson right now?
He's 34, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it kind of adds up when you put all this together. I know that was a long-winded answer, Brendan, but you put this in a full form and it makes complete sense of why it's happening. It's also why it's not happenstance. It's also why we about to eat.
Mm-hmm.
We about to eat out here in Seattle. So revel.
And we have this other super chat concerning the Russ situation from Garth Knight. Thank you for the $10. Gentlemen, I know it's early, but I will concede the Russ trade. I don't know if it's better than the Herschel Walker trade, the Jamal trade, or the Jets fleecing Pete as a former coach. Hilarious. I kind of talked about this in my video this morning, but here's the thing. The Vikings trade for Herschel Walker was an all-timer, obviously, right? It was terrible.
Right.
But at least Herschel Walker, when he went to Minnesota, was still good. Like, I looked at his numbers after the trade. He was still a quality NFL running back. The year after the trade, he had 1,000 yards from scrimmage, double-digit touchdowns. He was still one of the better running backs in the league. He gave you something. This is a circumstance where not only is Wilson through 6 games playing like a net negative player, like genuinely a burden to that team, but you also gave him the crippling, franchise-destroying contract. Like, I think this is actually, I know what we got back was not nearly as much as the Herschel Walker trade, because that was 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and a little bit more. But getting rid of a player who has genuinely turned into a net negative, I think this might be the most, based off where we're headed through 6 games, this might be the most lopsided trade in NFL history.
It's maybe got a room for contention. I think, as you say those assets they give up for Herschel. 3. What say that Herschel one again? Let's
I think it was 3 firsts and 3 seconds and players and like a 6th.
I mean, it's really tough on that one. Not to say that one still is a little bit worse, because that's just so much to give up, and that was right at the age of the quarterbacks kind of taking over for running backs, as far as the running back value going being as much as that. This one's in contention, though. You're right to put it up there, because this is going to be held in contention. There will be people who argue, like you do, that it is more. I think that you got to factor in the one other thing for whatever it's worth on this. I don't know what your measure of it would be, but let's also put into it. I was just Googling. I didn't see where the Vikings signed Herschel Walker to a trade after signed him to a new deal after making that trade.
I don't think they did.
So you do also have, as far as the part of this deal, that we've got the Broncos signing this guy to the contract that he did. If we want to make it in conjunction with this, that could be something to push it over the mark, because that money's not going anywhere and he's not getting any better, I don't think. And they don't have a lot of solutions moving into the future to fix it. But yes, we finessed them. We sold them a lemon. They have, we definitely got out on the situation at just the right time. It's not to say that I don't think that Russell could maybe succeed in a situation, but you and I talked about it. Remember what I said to you on this in the offseason? I said, what they're going to do is the West Coast is going to fail, and what they're going to have to do, power rushing attack with the deep play action shots and minimize his volume of throws, which is not what he wants to do. But that's the only pathway for Russell Wilson moving forward in the Broncos, and they're going to force him into it, and it's going to piss him off.
Yeah, and you're not going to run a lot of power running when Melvin Gordon already very, very irritated with the way things are going. Did you see him on the sideline?
I wanted to get John Boy over there, John Boy me, to get the lip reading with what Judy was saying did you get the moment with Judy talking to the other person?
I did see that, yeah, but I don't know what he said.
I was sitting there like, I was like, just trying to read I couldn't get it, but it was definitely something I felt like it was about rest. So, but yeah, there's disconnect out there a little bit in that locker room out the gate. Look, Russ, it ain't you coming in early to a young team. It's always been said your second team's never going to love you as much as your first. It's going to be more of, come on, what do you got? Show us what you got. And coming in, getting that contract like you'd done before, you'd proven it. It's you better bring it at that point. If you're going to sign that deal like that, then that locker room, that stuff does matter whether it should or not. It's just human nature that it is. Um, I also think that again, he looked at the situation and just saw guys with names and stuff rather than the situation being ideal for him. A non-pass protecting offensive line, a guy in Judy who had huge drop problems last year. Really, I know you said in the video is a 1,000-yard first year, but aside from really that, he's been not good and
I think he got hurt
inconsistent.
last year in the first game and didn't play very
Okay,
much.
well that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually looked it up. He had about 900 yards as a rookie, but his catch rate was like 44%, which
Ooh,
you almost never see.
yeah, that means he got a lot of targets, not a lot of catches. I think that's the bit of the problem here is that Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are no Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, not even in the vicinity, not even the range, not even the
I
ballpark.
think Sutton's legit. I think Sutton's good. He had 1,100 yards with Drew Lock as his quarterback. I think Sutton's good.
I think he is. I just don't think he's quite where DK is as far as the problem DK is. Like I'm watching DK in this game, and I'm going to say this with like I've been wondering this. I'd seen it on all 22, but I want to really feel it in person. There was times I would watch DK in the route. These free safeties over the top because a lot of times DK is to the left side of the field there, and that means to the free safety side of the field. He is post snap rolling to DK side like he's a rock on a hill with an incline like this post snap. I mean, I'm just going, really? Like you guys are just biting in on the double team like that? Like not like he's sitting right and squatting down post snap and kind of like baiting the quarterback. And then he's just like, I want to show the quarterback instantly post snap. I'm going towards DK. This is what we're going to show him post snap time and time and time again. You're going, wow, that much, huh? I don't think Cortland's commanding that kind of double team respect necessarily down the football field, the way DK is. And I think he's a good receiver, don't get me wrong, but they're just that combination of those our two guys versus their two guys, but that's what they were all saying. Well, he'll make them that, like Russ was going to make them what they were rather than, they're kind of somewhat special talents in their own right. Let's give them the proper credit for them. And those guys might turn out to be okay in Sutton, but they got a ways to go here a little bit. Sutton's good. He might be near DK's level, but just not quite there in my opinion.
Yeah, and as for the other part of this super chat, I think this is massively more one-sided than the Jamal trade. The thing about the Jamal trade to remember, it's a bad trade. It's a bad trade by the Seahawks. But what made it a horrible trade, like a historically bad trade, was that he keeps getting hurt, which was not predictable based off your information that you had from before the trade. He was almost completely healthy with the Jets and with LSU. Like if he was able to stay on the field the way he stayed on the field with the Jets and the Tigers, it would still be a bad trade, but it wouldn't be that bad because you would be getting a very good player at the very least. It would still be a bad trade, but what made that trade a disaster was something that nobody could have predicted. That's bad luck. Okay, I'm not mad at Pete and John for not being able to look into the future and see this guy was going to turn into Kevin White, right? Or
Great.
CJ Procise.
It's a great point. It absolutely is a factor. Whereas they could see the Broncos could see the problems Russell's having right now are not new problems under the sun. They're not just new problems under the sun because he's with a new team with a new offensive coordinator. They're problems that have been here for a couple of years, which I think is built within your point. Yeah, and that's absolutely aptly put. And yes, that makes this look much worse than the Adams trade. Another part that I was thinking with the Adams trade too, with it is that the consideration of the picks themselves and where they are. Right? Doesn't that factor in as well here? Because we're going to get a pick this last year, number 10 overall. We're right now due to get a top 5 first round pick, top 5 second round pick. Last year was a top 11-ish, top 10 second round pick.
It was the number 9 overall for Cross, and then I think 41 for Mafe.
Yeah, so it was 10-ish. But the point is, what we gave up for Adams was, I think the first year was 24. Was it 20?
24.
So we were 24 the first year. Last year, yeah, okay, we gave him 11, I think, is 10. What we were at. We gave him 10. So 24, 10. But then the third round pick we gave him was also a late third round pick, right? Because that was also later in the end. So it wasn't exactly like where you go, well, it was almost like a second round. No, it was almost like a fourth round pick. So that assets, if you took that, it would be interesting to put it, and maybe I'll do it for my video where I'm going to the Jimmy Johnson chart on this. Is if you spit out the two numbers on this, we are vastly further ahead of where, and let's not forget, we also got players in the deal. We have Noah Fant for another year of club control. We have Shelby Harris for another year of club control. We're not on the bonus money for either of those two guys, though. I should say Noah Fant's deal is guaranteed next year, so it's technically bonus, but you could move him without it acting like bonus money if you really wanted to in some way or another. So came out of that all right. We came out of that pretty good.
Yeah. But yeah, just to try to wrap up all the Wilson talk, I don't want to spend this whole stream talking about it, but yeah, it's looking pretty juicy right now, and it seems to me that he's going to continue to force himself to play, even though there's no way he should be. Like you've heard about the hamstring, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Is that Russell? Is by the way? Okay, so he plays bad when it's my shoulder. No, it's my back. No, it's my neck. No, it's my ankle. Like, is that Russell's people doing that, or is that Broncos people just trying to put a little bit of water on some fire?
I don't think he's lying about the injuries personally. I think that he is actually getting hurt. But the problem is, you can see now that he's older, he's not as durable as he used to be. He's now had 3 completely different injuries of significance in the last calendar year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, things are changing for him very quickly.
It's just, to me, it's to the fact that happens back to every week. It's a new injury, and it's like he can come back and say, "Well, I was just fighting through all these different injuries, and that's why." It's giving him sort of a built-in excuse into the offseason for poor play, as opposed to him just not, having those moments like last night where there's a tight end directly in front of him. The offensive line's parted everything open for him, and he's looking his tight end like right in the eye, like they're locking eyes, having a moment, and he throws it down the sideline. So there's a little bit of like that where I'm wondering if he's kind of trying to set the stage for it. But you're right, he should sit down. This is what we said last year too, and I would say it to him this year. You've got your bag. There's nothing to worry about there. This team's not going to turn back around. Garrett Bowles is not coming back. You got IR all over the place. Tim Patrick's not coming back, who is maybe one of the biggest losses for you on the offensive side of the ball before even the season starts. Javonte Williams is not coming back. You might as well at this point, you can make the argument of say, look, I mean, it's going to suck to give him a better pick with me shutting it down and putting it back up in there, but I'm in disrepair. We need to figure out a lot of things on this team, and they're not going to get figured out here over the course of the season.
Yeah, and Denver literally has the worst offense in the league through 6 games. Literally, they're last in points. They're the only team in the league scoring less than 15 points a game on offense. It can't get worse. It literally cannot get worse with who is it? Mark Rippon's son?
Mm-hmm. Well, you talked about the defense Staley's in putting in, and remember, Staley's the Rams defensive coordinator, right? So a lot of familiarity with Russ, a lot of familiarity with what I need to do to combat Russ, what it is to do. And as I've maintained for years, this is the heads up thing. What's getting Russ is not a complexity of defenses. You'll get an occasional Cardinal Bowl. I think it's Bowles for the Cardinals who could run some really weird fronts at him and confuse him a lot all game long. Rams, Staley will do some of that, but really with the back end coverages, he's going to keep it pretty simplistic and really go to Russ and say, okay, Russ, show me that you can throw short. Show me that you can consistently hit the intermediate stuff accurately and on time, because I don't think you can do it. I think we're going to be able to recover if that's the case. And he's been able to prove that out with the Rams, and now it's proving it out the Chargers, even as they were understaffed. J.C. Jackson's playing like hot garbage for them, and Bosa's out right now for them as well. Two of the two of the more important defensive players not there, and still, like you said, able to hold them down.
Yeah. I think that pretty much sums up the Russ stuff. At this point, especially with him playing through all these injuries, I don't see any way it gets better this year. You're right. Like, I made the mistake of listening to Colin Cowherd this morning a little bit, and he acknowledged, like, I look at the charge. He was talking about the Chargers. He was like, they're going to get better because they're going to get Lindsley back. They're going to get their left tackle back, Slater. They're going to get Bosa back. They're going to get a couple other guys back, but nobody's coming back for the Broncos, so it's not getting better.
No, it's not getting better. And you point out in your video, the schedule, it gets hard for them going forward. There's not a lot of quote unquote easy wins there, if there are any on the schedule as it sits right now going forward for them. And I think with him, again, he's got to go back to the lab here and reinventing himself as a quarterback a little bit. I just don't think you can do that in the middle of a season. I think Russell's maybe capable of doing it long term. Some of this is going to be having a real sober conversation between Russell Wilson and Bronco management about what their future looks like here and what it's going to take to make this successful and really squeeze something out of this, as opposed to, we're going to bring you in here and let you be the forerunner that you want to be. Let your stars shine so bright and throw the ball all over the place. And it's going to be a little bit more of, okay, Russ, that was good. We did that. So we did that. Now we're going to do this. And if Russ does that to his benefit, give him a strong-minded coach in there that can really, batting it down at that point. Maybe there's something more still to get with him, and it's not completely just the wheels have fallen off. But absent of that,
Yeah, and I'm getting a kick out of it. There's some people out there who were kind of get annoyed with you that you're enjoying the downfall so
yeah,
much, but
you
you
know,
know
look,
what? It's not
yeah.
like he's dying out there. He's not like contracting a terminal illness. He's playing a game and he's not doing well at it.
This is also a little bit, I mean, whether, and people can maybe be hard on, but like, I can attest to Brendan having to face his share of bolts for this, as I've had to face my share of, fire for this, as far as having some of the Russell Wilson takes that weren't completely just Russell Wilson's amazing. And we get this on the Carroll stuff at times from certain folks, and that you get a lot of flaming on it where you're like, well, look, I feel like I look at this pretty deeply. I feel like I'm pretty right on with my assessment of the situation. I'm not trying to come at it from an emotional standpoint or a bias standpoint. This is just where we've arrived. It sucks that I've arrived at saying, hey, Russell needs to get better from the head up, but that seems to be the case here. He needs to get better pre-snap and post-snap. He needs to throw with better anticipation. He needs to have better control at the line of scrimmage. He needs to be able to better read stack fronts and know who's coming and who isn't coming. He needs to better commit to the hot route. These are things that I mentioned directly after the New York Giants game 2 years ago, Brendan, and they remain true, just as much true today. And that sucks to say, but it's then people coming at you emotionally. So there's going to be a little reaction back on our part. I'm not going to crawl all day, but I'll go, yeah, it feels good to come back and go, we were right on our assessment of this. We are trying to pay close attention to this. We're trying to get this right.
Yeah, well, I'm not even saying I got it right. I didn't think it was going to be this bad. No way,
No,
no how I thought he was going to be one of the worst starting quarterbacks in
I
the
mean,
league.
get it right, and not to get right in that you thought he was going to fall off, but get it right in that there's a way that this trade makes sense from Seattle's standpoint, and that
Right.
that's as much as anything with it. Is not just that I'm saying I didn't know Russ was going to be where he's at on this. I didn't think he was going this bad on it. I thought it was going to be rough road at first with him there, a lot rougher than people were predicting, but it's as much just that this was the proper move for us to move us forward into the best position for our future, and to be absent of having sentiment towards player over that. What is best for the organization and what is best for a player who's been great for us are sometimes two different things. And we got to make sometimes really tough decisions that cause us to have to make a decision between those two factors. And the Seahawks did, and they made the right one. And now we got to pay attention to it, because this is why we look in the future and we want to make similar decisions to say, see, this is why we did that in the past. And it made a lot of sense to do it in the past. And this is why we should also do it in the future.
Mhm. Okay, Megan Gauk Roger, thank you for the $10. A great game to be at live. My throat is aching and my ears are ringing, but I couldn't think of a better use of a day and a bucket list dream come true. Very cool.
Hell yeah.
I've been to some games. It's been a while. I've been to some Seahawks games. It is an experience, and I'm glad you got to go, Megan.
It was awesome. Yeah, she was actually a chaperone for me on that. So that was one of the reasons I got. She got some great tickets. So I was there. I was there with Megan, and we had a good time. It was cool.
Where were you guys? Were you guys in the lower bowl or the upper bowl or?
Lower bowl, non-Hawks Nest side, so it would have been right on the right to the end, behind the end zone, but it could have been like more than, like, I don't know, maybe 20 seats up, 20 rows up, I guess, approximately. My math's probably off on that, but it felt like something like that.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. I like it.
Oh, yeah. No, it was awesome. It was awesome. And you could really get close enough to it. Was certain plays, like especially like Kenneth Walker, you get a real feel for him and how he was. I know we're going to get to the offense in a second, but you could get a real feel for, just how the players were kind of playing there on the field, and him especially, just his suddenness. But it did give you a perspective, that Kyler perspective, Brendan. I wish I could almost show a picture of you could see the receiver disappear and the line disappear, and you can't see Kyler. I can't see Kyler's helmet. I'm not talking about I can't see Kyler's face, or I can't see his helmet. And then you come up out of the side, and we're kind of the right side. So then I could see the angle Kyler could see, and then he could kind of have a vision to kind of throw it out. And, the Cardinal offense too, it's just like 3-yard throws and it's a lot of tough uphill trudging
Yeah.
for that offense with them and their players. They ask a lot of those receivers with the yak stuff.
Yeah. Also, thank you, Megan, for this $5. So glad I made the 16,000-mile trip to be there on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be one of the longer trips you can make in all the world, right? Because Australia to Seattle, that's pretty close to as long a distance as you can go on a one-way trip,
I
unless you
can't,
want it to be longer.
unless you're going Arctic or something, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the only one I go, or what, Burma, Guam or something like that. I guess Guam would be maybe but that one's about as far as you can go. And now what are you doing? Like 3 or 4 probably stops on different. That's the brutal part, Brendan, is when you got to do the plane ride and then stop, get back on this one, get back on that, get off, do the 5-hour
Yeah.
layover, then back on this. Oh
I'll
Lord.
bet. Yeah. The Snail, thank you for the $2. Also, congrats on 10K. Thank you, the
Hell
Snail.
yeah.
Appreciate it. And R. Sanchez, thank you for the $2. Nice new headphones, legit. Yeah, they were not cheap, but hopefully these are the magic ones. These are the ones that last me a while.
Oh, those other ones were brutal. Though it was kind of cool. You kind of had you're getting like you were
Mhm.
listening to the beats kind of thing
Yeah.
going on at times.
All right, so let's continue on with the defense because we started with the defensive line. That was probably the most standout thing from that game, how much better they played. But the linebackers, obviously Nwosu played well as he pretty much always does, but Taylor played his best game of the year by far. PFF gave him like an 80 on that game.
Mhm.
He was a great presence in the pass rush. And I guess this is just going to be the way we do things now, where Taylor plays obvious passing downs, Mafe plays rundowns or potential rundowns. In this game, I think they almost had an equal split of snaps.
They
I think
did.
Taylor had 37 and Mafe had 36, something
Yep.
like that. So it seems like maybe if we put him in that situation, he can be an effective player. So I liked that. But what did you think of Jordan Brooks in this game? I want to ask you about that specifically because I think he played better, but I'm still not sure what to think of him.
I think he kind of gave you in this game, what he is. I think you because you ran less of the 4-man fronts, you saw less of the offensive linemen getting to him at the second level, which meant he got to move a little bit freer. Having instead of a 2-man front or 4-man front, you got the extra guy down there that lets him be just a little bit able now to move around a bit. Cardinals also spread things out, so that's less congestion down their line of scrimmage when they want to get more receivers outside, which is probably to Jordan's benefit at that point. Again, keeping things kind of clean and simple for him. On his reads with that. So he showed off what he could do as a run defender. His grade is reflective of that. He is a good run defender. I just don't think that I think with Jordan Brooks at this point, Brendan, what we've got to really look at with him at this point in this first year, I don't know that there's going to be this growth thing. I think he is what he is as a player. This is one of those situations where I know I'm hesitant to do that in certain players, but on this one I go, okay, now we're well into 3 years of this now. We're into 3 years of this, and there's been basically, if you go through every one of his PFF ratings, through every one of his grades, you're probably going to see pretty much a similar commonality. The run defense goes to varying levels. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's good, sometimes it can be even just a little bit average. Whereas his ability in pass coverage is always usually going to be below average in every game to really bad. And that's where he's at. That's who he is. It didn't change in this week. His PFF grade reflects that once again this week in both of those departments. And I just think that we've got to kind of look at him through that view of that is who he is and not expect him to become great in coverage. As you know, with me, I've looked at him going back to 2 years of his college tape, not just his final year in college. I looked at the previous year as well.
Right.
Guys, he was getting smoked that year in coverage too when he was put in zone. He's just struggles in zone. It's not his forte. It's not, he could maybe do okay in man, but even then, Brendan, he's a little undersized, 6'5" tight end on a 6-foot linebacker. The tight ends at times even going to still be able to get you at that point, but he just doesn't have the zone instincts. It's not in his bag.
Yeah. So at the end of this year, we're going to have to make a decision on Jordan Brooks because his 5th-year option is on the table. Now, it's not a massive amount of money, that 5th-year option,
What's it at?
but I think we can both agree that we don't want to give him some Darius Leonard contract after his 3rd year. But would you do the 5th-year option and lock him up for that 5th year? How do you feel about that?
What's the cost for the 5th year for him?
I'll look that up here real quick, but I think it's going to be somewhere around.
7. I'm gonna go seven and
Yeah,
a half.
because he was like a low. He was like a low first rounder. He was like 26th overall or something.
Yeah.
I'm looking for it. I don't see it here, but let's say it's somewhere around there. Let's just go with that number for the moment.
Okay. 1 year, $7.5 million deal. Yeah. I mean, I think at that point you're going to look at it like, okay, we put a first round pick on this guy. If you look at really what he's given us outside of being durable and that he's played a lot of games, we've not gotten a lot of upper level impact, but then we can at least look through that 5-year contract and that for a late first round pick, you got decent value out of that pick, considering 5 years of productivity from it, even with the $7.5 million. You're going to have to address the other middle linebacker position as well at that point. To me, the 5th-year option just makes the most sense on this because I don't think you're going to find a common ground contract of what he should really be receiving here. At the end of the day, I'm sorry. As I say, what is the value of a run stuffing middle linebacker in the sport now? A guy with super bad coverage liabilities, a guy that's going to give up like he did last year, almost 1,000 yards in the air. that's something that we've got to, he's got to be able to kind of swallow hard on and go, okay, I have some limitations as a player. And that seems to be a tough ground to get to on players as far as in contract negotiations. So you probably just got to fall back to, we got the club control. You've not been able to stand out really and separate yourself as a player in this respect. And you've not improved on the things that were detriments to your game coming in. I think he still is kind of just about the same kind of player he was when he walked in the door in certain respect. I know he's improved, don't get me wrong, but there's just seeing the same things, both good and bad from him, sometimes lead me to think that with him a little bit.
Yeah, I think I agree. The 7.5 million, if that is the number, that's perfectly reasonable. Like, especially with the cap going up the way that it is, I got no problem with that. Even if it's more than that, unless it's up to like, 14, 15 million.
No,
I
I'm not. Yeah, I even when we get to even at 10, I'm going to start to, my knees are going to buckle a little bit, Brendan. Even at 10, but I'm probably, it's what we're going to look at 230 next year on the cap.
yeah, something like that.
Okay. So it's, that's very small amount of the cap. It's like 2 point something percent of the cap, even at like 10 million or something. So, it's, I'm okay with that on a 1 year deal because they're going to address the other middle linebacker position. And there's going to be other spots that they'll deal with at that point by doing that, where they just kind of go, let's push this off for a year and we'll draft a guy in the draft and he gets some competition in there. And if you get a guy that's like awesome in the draft and he bucks him out, you're like, oh, okay, well, we'll move him in this year to somebody who want him to, it works in your favor. So that's the straightforward play on that one.
So that's Jordan Brooks, but let's talk about the other big schematic change the Seahawks made that I think made their defense play so much better. The first one being no two-man fronts.
Right.
The other thing was Cody Barton was only on the field for about 35% of the snaps.
Mm-hmm.
We ran a lot of nickel. I think we ran some dime, trying to get those defensive backs on the field as much as possible, finding ways to have Cody Barton not be on the field, basically. And I think that helped a lot. So the Cody Barton party looks like it's already over because I think we have a pretty definitive answer here.
I'd like to think so. I mean, that the Cardinals spread formations they implement is it as high a rate as you're going to get in the they're a little bit like the Rams in the amount of 4 wide receiver sets that you put you in the position to counter with dime at that point, right? Like gives you in a where it's like if I have a 3 wide receiver set and I'm going dime, they're going to kind of run on me unless I've got 2 guys on at my slot in my 4th corner that are going to be able to really tackle and come off the edge and really be a part of that. I don't know if they've got that quite yet to be able to go that hard as a counter on that if that rolls that way. And if you're going nickel, that's 2 linebackers out there, and that means you're going to then have Cody on the field. I think you're right. They found creative ways to not have him on the field as much this week, but I think some of that was born out of playing the Cardinals this week first when you're going to play a team that's going to go more just 2 tight ends, that type of thing, like a Viking team. I think we play later on in the year. That's where he's going to be back out there, and it's going to be. But he did good with what the little bit he was out there. It's nice to see him graded at least. He's had a couple of games. I think the Saints game, they liked him a lot too. I don't know
Why.
They're seeing something, man. God bless. Hey, whatever they're seeing, maybe I'm missing. So he seems to be stepping forward from the Saints game in this last game, and maybe they're finding a role for him. He's like Darrell Taylor. Less is more.
Yeah, maybe. I guess the last thing to talk about with this defense is we've got a special group of corners here, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
We've got something real going on here. So let's start with the big one. I was talking about this with some people earlier today because the defensive rookie of the year talk is going to start now for real. Like it's time to really take this seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at it. Who's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year if not Tariq Woolen? Through 6 games, the only guy I'm seeing is Devin Lloyd. I think Devin Lloyd would win if it was today. Devin Lloyd has probably going to end up with about 150 tackles. He's good. He's making plays in coverage. One of the best linebackers in the league already, I believe. But other than that,
we liked him a lot, by the way.
We liked him a lot. Did. Yeah, I was a big fan.
Nobody's doing what Tariq Woolen's doing. You could find a couple defensive linemen like Trayvon Walker or maybe Aiden Hutchinson with the Lions that are holding up reasonably well and making some plays here and there. But there's nobody right now who's operating on his level. He's having as good a start to the cornerback position through 6 games, if I can be hyperbolic and say it, as anybody that we've seen in NFL history. I mean, he is to be this good, this early, this quick, this fast, and it's not cheap interceptions. These are not Shaquille Griffin interceptions. It's not tip passes coming his way or wayward throws by the quarterback. You could make an argument about whether or not Kyler Murray should challenge Tariq Woolen on a 9 route, or as Sherman says, you should challenge any Seahawks corner on a 9 route. That's just not something you should do because that's their program to stop it. That's why he says that. But he still played the ball well. He's still high pointed. He showed those hands. It's not just to be there in coverage and sticky. It's also to complete the process, which is what he did. And as we've said, with all of these interceptions, all of them are really great plays, and all of them are reproducible into the future. You can see him making a similar play in similar situations again because of those natural instincts, the athleticism, the speed, the explosiveness, the length, the size, the ball skills. Those are all showing up. And if it was me right now and it's finishing off, that's great. Devin Lloyd tackles, whoopity woo. To have a corner Devin Lloyd is not having the best start for a middle linebacker through 6 games than anybody in NFL history, arguably. Tariq Woolen is.
Yeah.
That's your defensive rookie of the year right now at the end of the day, in my opinion. But I can get where, look, it's East Coast biased up. But to me, he's got also, let's not forget also fumble recovery, blocked kick to go in addition to what he's done. To me, it's been outstanding. He is far and away right now. Sherman's not even close with what Sherman did with the 4 interceptions. That was great. This is even better for his start. And as Jordan Brooks said in the post-game discussion, right now he's just doing this on talent. He's not doing this on skill or anything else.
Yeah, I thought it was funny he said that. I thought that sounded kind of mean the way he put it.
Well, I agree with you. There's a little bit of a subtle backhanded compliment to that, to your point. I think we were just talking about Jordan, right? This is an important year for Jordan. Jordan comes out here and really balls out. He's walking away with one of those big fatty middle linebacker contracts that are rarely given out, but he comes out here and still shows off some of the same limitations to his game. Him and Quandre Diggs have that pipe session going on last week in the Saints game. And so maybe he's sort of sitting there going, all right, I played all right today, but this kid's going to get all the, shine here a little bit out the gate. And, hey, he deserves it, man. He's coming out here and he's being dominant. And it's not just those interceptions. He's not allowing catches. He's not allowing, his quarterback rating is ridiculously low on top of everything else. So, I mean, hate as you want, maybe a little bit, Jordan, but it does also though encourage you. What happens when he does get some technique tightened down? And he's got guys like Sherman in his ear to get that technique in there. So that's what gives you the hope. It's not he's just out there on his own. He's got a Carroll to help him get those things. We know that we can get that part implemented into his system through these next couple of years. How good is he going to be when he has all of that starting to come together for him? Look out.
Yeah, and I think it's going to happen. I don't know why it wouldn't happen at this point, because if he really is just doing this, barely knowing how to play the position, then why would it go anywhere except to the moon? Like you said, his coverage numbers are great. It's not just interceptions. He's not Trayvon Diggs out there.
No, he's not just jumping routes, being aggressive, which is what Trayvon Diggs does, is that Trayvon Diggs wants to jump everything and be aggressive, and that's going to cause him to get beat and give up a lot of yards. He's not doing that. He's staying technically within what his tasks are. A couple of those interceptions are him dropping to the bail technique, playing his cover three coverage, breaking off that, driving back on the man after he's made sure he's cleaned over the top. That's, again, how you get excited about it, where it's not just luck happenstance. It's him executing his technique, and then still within executing his technique, getting the pick too. We've seen guys execute the technique who can't get that extra part done, the Shaquille Griffin types, where it's like he can stay clean over the top, but he can't ever drive on a ball. He can't ever recognize what's going on in front of him or react to it or be athletic enough to react to it in space like he is. He's going to be a star in this league. We are going to have a top 3 corner on this team going into the future. And boy, just again, is going to help this rebuild out so much. I know we're in a 3-3 season, but if we don't already people thinking into next year, this team's going to be elite if they make the right moves. You should start dreaming like that right now.
Yeah. And Kobe Bryant, just to talk about him, I think he played his best game as a pro. He had a first career pass defensed. Made a couple plays on the ball, I think. His coverage numbers were much better. In the previous games, he mostly got abused in coverage. But in this game, I didn't notice nearly as much. He was involved on a lot of plays. I think he had 8 tackles, and it wasn't a thing where he was giving up easy receptions and then getting the tackle after. The forced fumble was great. I mean, that was not a play where it was a gimme. It's not like Kyler was holding the ball out like this and he just grabbed it. No, he had to actually punch that thing out there. Is he starting to figure out this nickel stuff, you think? Or are you still looking at him and hoping that eventually he finds his way back to his natural position?
Boy, it was a hell of a challenge this week with Rondale Moore, isn't it? That guy's a legit guy for his 6'1" build. It's those small little guys like that operating out of the slot on a guy that's a 6'1", you go, that's going to give him give him some issues at times with that guy being able to get the really quick separation on him where he just can't flip the hips necessarily because he is 6'1" versus a 5'7", 5'8" guy. That's just law of physics there going on where it's just I can't go as quick as this guy, especially a guy like Rondale, who is really sudden in his kind of movements. Not a complete receiver or anything, but just in that little role they got him in, he could probably work well. I agree with you. I think he had his best game. I think it's also coming on the heels of him kind of slowly, if be it very small little steps, getting better and better as the years gone on through these games, seeming more comfortable in his role. There was a little bit of that, Brendan, too, where I think there was times, to my eyes, sitting from the stands, where Rondale was getting that separation, and then Kyler was just recognizing it hella late. And then that was giving Kobe, and look, Kobe's got the catch up speed and was closing up. So to his credit, he stayed with it on the plays. But I think that helped out just a little bit as well, because he was able to get up to speed and kind of that gave him his little opening at that point. Versus if it's thrown over the middle there right on time, it's maybe a bit of more of a completion there.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, this is the NFL. You're still going to give up receptions no matter what. But at least he wasn't the guy that was getting picked on over and over again like some of these previous games.
I do think, though, the exceptional part is that you've got a guy who can potentially play on the outside, who now maybe he's going to be able to play on the inside. That's versatility he gives you going into the future. An insurance plan for Trey Brown when he comes back going into the future. But then the ability to cause the fumbles as he has. You mentioned the Kyler Murray fumble being a true punch it out type play. Every one of the fumbles that he's caused this year are not just by him lucking out. It's him seeking out in the moment, in the everything going a million miles a minute. He's like, going full on, like he's seeing it. He's like the Flash, where he's seeing a little bit second faster on what he's locating to go and then knock the ball out. And so he's, as I said with Tariq in this respect, it's something that's going to replicate itself into the future. And if Coach Carroll's going to be your coach, and you're going to run probably some kind of forms of soft zone going into the future, you're going to need a defense that can do two things: generate pressure and generate turnovers. They've got two guys here that are going to be able to generate those turnovers going into the future, or be helping to get there. And this has been a problem, hasn't it, Brendan, over the last couple of years with this defense, getting turnovers, causing these things to happen. You've really had moments where you've had these really long dry spells. You couldn't be able to do anything. So as we look into this year and into the future, both of these two guys are bringing a skill set with what they're bringing to bear here, which is going to be so valuable to this team. One less thing that we have to take care of, one less box to check this offseason, as we're looking to now get the team to an elite status on that ascent, not merely just sitting in rebuild.
Okay, I think that's pretty comprehensive on the defense. It was a really good game. The best game of the year by far, and you're only giving up 3 points in 60 minutes. You did something right. So I know part of it was that Arizona didn't have their kicker, but still.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a little bit of that, but you held in, you were strong there. You did your part. You got 3 and outs, you got stops, you got turnovers at the right time. I think too, I was going to mention Uchenna got really dinged by PFF. This is one of those blind spots, I think, for PFF though, where he was running a lot of the Russell Wilson stuff that they ran in the first week with Russ, where there'd be times he's in that spiral. So he's coming off the blocks like it's a pass rush, but you can see he's not fully committed to it. He's kind of looking to do a soft loop, not a full-on stunt loop, but just sort of that soft loop back into the inside of the defensive line to kind of keep Kyler contained or keep him kind of guided to where they wanted to guide him directionally. So he was doing a lot of that too within it, which is why I think he was dinged a little bit more in his overall grade. He didn't look to be playing as bad as he was sort of clipped on by PFF.
Is it possible he got dinged on that because Kyler actually had a really good day running? He had 100 yards.
I would think that, but if it's like the one Kyler run where he goes up the right side and he gets up the field there, that was to Terrell Taylor's side. And so he's playing the spiral, but he's got to come all the way back across the field to get to Kyler there, which is and it was a committed run from the jump. It wasn't Kyler back there and he's sitting in the pocket and then goes. There was a lot of what they did with Kyler was basically scripted. Just go out here. And that was an attack on Darrell Taylor's side on that particular big run where he really got up the sideline, and eventually Quandre Diggs and Michael Jackson brought him down right near the goal line. There was a lot. They did a little bit more of the scripted stuff where it might have looked like he dropped back, but he wasn't even looking. He was just to drop back at the safeties to set. And then he was going to run. So I think it was just, he's so quick, man. I mean, he's like they just couldn't get their hands on him at times when he wanted to, run around. And
it was the only thing they did in that game that worked, really.
It was. And I mean, their offensive attack is I'll tell you, Brendan, it's meager. I know what they're trying to do. What they're essentially doing is the evolution of the West Coast offense, which is, okay, we're going to throw short, let the running backs and the receivers and the tight ends do work with the ball after the catch. And what this offense does is we'll go, yeah, that's great, but those routes are too long. let's cut those routes in half and let's run and let's get the ball even faster into their hands. And then they're going to be able to do even more work yak wise. And that sounds great unless you have a team that's rallying up to tackle. I was going to ask you on this, and this does bring up an idea to me. Does Carroll maybe have at this point a really good bead of any offense in the league as he does on the Cardinals right now? Doesn't it kind of feel like with Kyler there and Kingsbury there, and I'm not talking about Colt McCoy. That's a whole nother outlaw from a whole nother state. I'm talking about that combination with that there. He seems to have a pretty good understanding of what he wants to do to that quarterback. With not that, well, at least that offense, I mean, Kyler might run a little bit, but it seems like the last few games, he's not really, I've seen him go off on the Rams. I've seen him go off on teams and really have explosive games. I can't really remember the one where I felt like he really did that to us. He's made some throws. He's made some plays at times, but we've overall done a good job of, it feels like, hemming him up.
Yeah. Although I would say the Cardinals have not been good in general this year on offense. Like they scored 12 points against the Rams. I don't think they got in the end zone once. The Eagles, they were okay. The Chiefs, they did a bunch of stuff in garbage time after the game. It didn't matter.
And I mean the more last couple of years with Kyler there, not even just this year, but more in what we've seen from us defending him over the last few seasons, even when we haven't had necessarily the best.
There's something there. I think that on some level, it's not that hard. It's 100% shotgun what they want, right? Have they ever with Kyler run a single play from under center?
No, they don't. But that's what I wonder about, is that you drop your soft zones naturally. This type of offense would theoretically, if I was drawing it up, I'd go, well, this is an offense that should give this defense problems, because you are doing essentially, you're attacking the weakness of this defense, which is will allow you short stuff. It almost seems like Carroll's decided on these kind of affairs when playing this Cardinal team. I'm going to squeeze those zones. I'm going to really close my fist around these zones a little bit and really press it up and allow my tacklers to get up there and get on top of those guys second that they've got the ball, as opposed to having those guys dropping so far deep into space each time to protect against that big play. I'm just wondering. I don't know for sure.
It's like when he kind of had the Shanahan stuff figured out really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And I don't know if that's the case now because he can't stop the run as well as he used to, but
you changed the scheme.
Yeah, exactly.
That was also your 4-3. That was your 4-3 under with the Sam on the line that helped you stop that. And now you're with the 3. You went 3-4 and you were still with those 4-man fronts a lot in that Niner game, and it just didn't work. So that's what's lost your way a little bit with Shanahan.
Yeah, and giving Pete some credit here, I think we're getting there with the Rams. The last several games we played the Rams, their offense didn't do that much. Last year, their offense in both games, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and our offense was going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and eventually the defense wore down.
Yeah.
The playoff loss, the Rams had 2 free touchdowns because of the pick 6 and the fumble on the punt. Like, that was not a great game for the Rams offense. The game before that, they scored 9 points. Like, he's kind of starting. It took a while, but he is starting to figure out these division rivals on their offenses pretty well.
Yeah, it's slightly coming around with the Rams. I think the Rams thing will be the key on that one. Is really like each team's got their own kind of thing. Their thing is the flood zone. And I think to the Rams home game last year, our home game with the Rams last year, as you said, that started to wear down. Russell's injury, that same game. But during the end of that game, the Rams with the go-to move would just be, let's run a flood zone concept. And it was let's run the back-to-back guys in on a route, and the first guy will run him right out, and there'll be a second guy who'll sit behind the first guy who runs the first guy out of the zone. And he attacks that way over and over again to Carroll's defenses. And I think Carroll does have a little bit of a feel. He talked about a post-game of that, of we coached this a certain way. We didn't play it the same way we coached it that week, is what he referenced. And so that's where, hey, maybe there is that plan there in place, like you say, to do that at that point. That would seem to be indicative of that. It'll be interesting to kind of track this year when we do go and play the Rams twice.
Chase Stern, thank you for the $5. LAC coming off a short week and they didn't play well against Denver. I'm optimistic about that game. I think we're going to save most of the Chargers talk for Thursday when we preview that game. But I don't know how to feel about that game. I feel like it's a bad matchup, but that team's kind of bad right now. So that's going to be, this could be a big pivot point for this whole season. This is winnable now.
I do agree it's winnable. It isn't. We're at home, right? As I remember correctly.
No, they're
No, are we
LA.
on the right? Are we
LA.
in LA? Gosh, I thought it's at home. Okay. Yeah, it's a winnable game. I think if you still have I haven't tracked the injury situation yet with the Chargers on the left tackle and center. I think that's a big portion of this for them.
Slater comes back in December at best.
Okay, and I'm guessing Lindsley. I don't know. I think Lindsey was sick. They said so. I don't know if that means he's probably
Yeah.
back this week or not.
Yeah.
Keenan. Well, it's really those three guys. Them and Keenan Allen, because Keenan Allen was
Yeah.
out this last game as well.
Keenan will be back, but that might be good. They'll play more 3 receiver sets.
Well, there
They
you
can
go.
get Cody
Less
Barton off the
Barton.
field.
Less Barton. Less Barton.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a tough game for our defense. That Denver Bronco defense is still it's been legit every single game pretty much. They got back. They got finally back Justin Simmons for the first time last night. So that was a very good defense getting back extra help in that secondary. Now their other corner like had 4 pass interferences in the game, so they had still had their weak spots to it. But it will be an interesting test. It will let us know if this defense is taking steps forward or if we just kind of saw a mirage against what you said, like you said, that an offense has been one of the league worst this year coming into this game like it was the Cardinals and how that game kind of broke down. So it's winnable. You don't have Bosa. There's JC Jackson has been buyer's remorse big time for the Chargers in regards to that offseason signing. And many people thought he was the best corner in football last year. So that's been a huge loss on those two fronts with those two players in the way that they were kind of putting this together this offseason. So it's not I didn't think they were going to be a juggernaut, but I thought they were going to be one of those top teams this year coming into this game when I looked at the schedule, whereas now you go, okay, there's some scales missing from this dragon skin that we could jab through.
I mean, that offensive line, like watching that game, Denver's offensive line, as bad as it was not the worst offensive line in that game. Like the Chargers had this right tackle who I don't know why you even put that guy on a football field. All he did was stand there and then watch the pass rusher go around him and then kind of try to chase him on, it felt like 10 to 12 plays.
Seemed like he was trying to just guide him out the back of the pocket. That was his move every time. Like, I'm just going to try to ride him. And but it was your point. It was like a weak effort of just trying to ride him to the back of the pocket. Cause you'd see Justin still sit in the pocket thinking, oh, he'll ride him around and then he'll loop and he'll come, but I got some time.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think Jermaine Ifedi ever was as bad as what I saw from whoever the heck that was last night. I was watching him specifically at points of that game, and I just couldn't believe how little effort he was putting into blocking.
Yeah. Well, and if they're in the same state, I mean, if they're down, you said they'll be down Slater and Lindsley's out, that backup center also went down for a while in injury in that game. So on a short week, he's probably not going to be feeling great either if he tries to come back. So it's very interesting to monitor here, especially Herbert's still playing through a little bit of that injury, I think, in his chest. I don't think that's just magically gone away here. I definitely think we're going to be able to make some hay in this game, but it's so hard to predict where this defense is at just because this was the first game where you really walked from and went, okay, that was a functionally good defense that looked like we thought theoretically they could look this offseason. Now that, they were even a little better than that, but just hard to say on the back of 1 week. I like our chances a lot better than I did this offseason looking at this game now.
David Pugh, thank you for the $9.99. Would love to see us be proactive instead of reactive at the receiver position this year with Lockett getting into his 30s. Making a splash on the offense in the second round sounds like a decent idea to me. What do you think about that?
A lot of this is going to be, David, pushed upon what is your approach going forward. And if you have Coach Carroll here remaining as a head coach, I think you're going to probably more likely than not remain in a balanced state. Though I will say we've seen obviously a few games here where Geno Smith's thrown more than they've passed considerably. So that is a possibility, which would open the door, David, to me being open to that, bringing a receiver in, is if, okay, we're going to commit to being a team that will throw the ball if teams are going to load up the box. And if they're going to do that all game, we'll throw all game. Well, yeah, you need receivers to do that. And Lockett is indeed getting up in his 30s. You do wonder, how long with how much football he's played. He's had major injuries in his career at times. That's something that does sit in your brain. Eskridge was your highest rated player on offense coming out of this past game. Now, he did it on the back of only a mere 12 snaps, but if I'm not mistaken, Brendan,
13.
he was also 13 snaps.
Give Eskridge.
I got to give him that snap. I got to give him those snaps. Yeah. He was also, I believe, fairly well rated off of last week's game, if I'm not mistaken, in the Saints, or it might have been the Lions game. And either way, he's showing flashes, at least to now maybe starting to kind of step forward as a player a little bit, to be a little bit more of that guy. I'm a little hesitant, David. I'd be interested to hear what Brendan's got to say on this, but I'm a little bit hesitant to want to put the second round picks or the first round picks on wide receiver position right now. I'm not that I'm opposed to it completely, but that I think that there's other positions that have to be more better addressed. And I would almost like to look at a receiver position like you're talking about in a free agent move or pulling a veteran in on a trade who's maybe a little bit depressed as an asset. Understanding you need not at that point more of that third, fourth guy, backup guy to lock it, and insurance policy to lock it. So I'm open to it, but I think there's going to be some other players that'll be a little more tantalizing to look at there.
Yeah, my thing is we might need to reevaluate the timeline on Tyler Lockett because I thought we were going to be seeing signs of slippage by now,
Mm-hmm.
but he might be having his best year. He's getting open better than he ever has before. Remember the ESPN has a stat of like how open receivers are getting, and he's number one, or he's still somewhere in the top three.
Yeah.
And he's producing just as much, if not more, than he did with Russ, even with this most recent game not being so good. So maybe he's got more gas left in the tank than we thought. Now he can still get hurt. It can happen quickly. It could be a thing where he suddenly just loses 2 steps in one off season. But I'm not looking at Lockett as a guy who's got 1 foot out the door anymore. I'm looking at him as like, this might be the best I've ever seen Lockett play.
And it drives a lot of fans crazy with how he falls down to the ground and how he'll run out of bounds and how he doesn't try as much for the yak. But the potential upshot of that is that he is able to propel himself from the longevity standpoint. That it's maybe just that many more great big hits he doesn't take, getting down those, which then allows him to play that extra couple of years into his career. He's reached that master state of route running where it's almost beyond speed and quickness. It's technique and it's understanding and his feel for the game, which to me is just not going to fall away from him the second he gets into his early 30s. I'm okay again, backup plan. But to me, this is the thing with the NFL with having Eskridge still on the roster. If he's showing you he can be what he's been a little bit more this year, knowing you have still have Melton and Derek Young, who they had Derek Young out in the field in this game. So he's starting to get a little bit of run. And boy, Brendan, let me tell you something. He's a big boy. Derek Young's he's a big and field, but on the field in person, watching him up against other players on the field size wise, like he's good size. He's good size. So you may have it in this other places, David, necessarily. I'm open to it, but I think Lockett might have a little more run to him. Might have just a little bit more here.
Also, David Pugh sent this. Thank you for the $4.99. A lot of people killed the K9 pick so early because we didn't need him. Yeah, look how that's looking now. Proactive instead of reactive. I think it's a little different because Rashad Penny was on a 1-year deal. Mm-hmm. Whereas Lockett and Metcalf are both going to be here for a while just because their contracts are so big. Like Lockett, I think, is stuck here for at least 2 years after this one. Metcalf is kind of stuck here for 3 years. So it's a little different.
So wait, is he relating this to the wide receiver argument?
Yeah, he's saying that instead of waiting for you to desperately need a player, and that's getting him, you get him before you're desperate.
And that's why, David, I am looking at the Eskridge, I'm looking at the Melton, I'm looking at the Derek Young, and I know Derek Young and Melton are 2 7th-round picks, so there's maybe a tendency there to go, well, they're 7th-round picks, what could you expect? But I think the team in the past has found some value in later round selection in that respect. You've doubled up to see who can kind of have, maybe give you something with it. And it's not that I'm even against necessarily second round pick in general going wide receiver, because David, you're right in the respect of wide receivers are mattering now more than ever. And teams that have loaded up on the wide receiver position have had a lot of success doing so. Tampa Bay just a couple of years ago, right? With all those guys they brought in, Antonio Brown and Mike Evans and Godwin, along with the 2 tight ends they were running out. You saw it from Tampa Bay as well there for a time period. But I just worry, like, if it comes down to, David, you're looking at it and going, okay, we need a middle linebacker. We're getting the second round, first 2 picks. We've made selections to other areas. Now we have a desperate need middle linebacker. There's a fantastic middle linebacker there. That's where the value of middle linebacker falls. And then you're going, yeah, let's go wide receiver here. We'll go for our fourth guy who will be programmed to be your 4th wide receiver on the depth chart, versus going and getting a guy that would necessarily potentially be your starting middle linebacker at that point. That's where I worry about making that decision at that moment. I don't want to angle off what may be or safety. Let's go strong safety. You're at a position there where you moved on from Jamal. You don't feel great about where you are with your strong safety position. And it's a matter of, do I want to go for the 3rd, 4th wide receiver or a really good, strong safety immediately who can get on the field and go? And that's where I think the decision might come down to if you're talking about taking a wide receiver in the 2nd round, which is just where my hesitancy comes from.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not completely against it, like you said, but if the value's there, the value's there. I want to do BPA in most circumstances. So
Me too. I mean, that's where I lean, David, which when you talk about kind of prescribing to a pick, that's where you'll start to make both me and Brett a little nervous with it. We're okay with it. We're on board, but it also starts to pull us away from BPA a little bit, which is a little bit like that's kind of our home
yeah.
base on where we operate from with the draft.
Mm-hmm. Addison Shelby, thank you for the $2. I'm going to the game at SoFi this Sunday. Go Hawks.
Get it, Addison.
That's the they play in the same stadium as the Rams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It's the $5 billion stadium
that's right.
that
Yeah.
infuriated Jerry Jones.
Oh yeah. The second he heard it, what are they doing? What are they doing? Why did it LA? Oh, of course. LA. Wait, only way you can do is 2 teams. Yeah, he was mad about that one.
Yeah, remember the Cowboy Stadium when they built it? It cost like $1 billion, and that was a big deal at the time. And now it's like, forget about it.
He told everybody about that. He made sure everybody knew the cost. He did everything but show everybody the receipt.
Yeah.
See this? See how much that costs? As a
Remember when he got drunk and admitted the only reason why he hired Parcells was so he could build a stadium?
I didn't know that. I remember he got drunk and he burned Jimmy Johnson out of town. So when he hits the bottle, he just he starts to set the world on fire.
Yeah.
He's not a happy drunk, obviously, but that's what he did with Jimmy Johnson. You heard, right? Like he was literally with Cowboy reporters. I think they were drinking, and he's like, I think he said like 20, there's 20 coaches in the NFL who could do what Jimmy Johnson's done. And Jimmy caught wave of that, and that ended up causing the whole rift, which caused the whole thing to fall apart. They could have had 5-6 Super Bowl championships in that decade. But he had the ego, man.
Yeah. As a fan of that team, that would just infuriate me that something that stupid disrupted everything. And they're still paying for it today because they haven't done anything since.
Well, if I was ever getting into a point, I had a team that was young, like we were young and began onto a great status, on a team that was on that point where you guys can do something special, not just this year and beyond. And that's going to take a commitment level. And that's true. And like the Legion of Boom had that, right? They lived and breathed football and they held each other to that accountable status that they talk about that was so rigid. But it also takes one more thing that never gets talked about from these teams and what sets these teams off the rails every time. And it almost doesn't matter the sport. And then that ego pride thing kicks in somewhere or another. Maybe it's the coach. Maybe it's a certain player on the team. Maybe it's a clique of the team. In this case, it's an actual owner of the team with the Cowboys, which makes it unusual. But you can see it in different parts from the 85 Bears that clicked in. You saw it on our Legion of Boom team. You can still feel it now with the way that kind of got pulled apart with some of that stuff. It's the place that you've got to fight where it's like, I'm great. I'm magnificent. I'm the best ever. I can do no wrong. And that's the pride goeth before the fall. That's exactly why. And it's the part that I think teams don't remind themselves of, that you got to keep at the forefront when you are that team on that rise.
All right. Big Patty Daddy, thank you for the $1.99. Thanks for putting me in the subs. Go Hawks, boys. You're welcome, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
R. Sanchez, thank you for the $2. Rarefied air affecting Russ's deep ball. I thought playing in Denver would actually be great for his deep ball. I thought he'd be launching some like 90-yard moon balls down the field. And now I don't know if that's ever coming back.
Yeah. I mean, and look, the deep ball has been a tiny bit off in Seattle at times in that game he threw in Seattle. It wasn't necessarily right on. And it also last night they were in LA. So there was no rarefied air out there last night,
Yeah. God, I mean, here's the thing. Like, if you look at the 2 biggest plays he's hit this year, probably the deep ball to Jerry Jeudy week 1 and the deep ball he hit last night to, I think it was Hamler right before the end of the half. They're both terrible throws. He underthrows them by like 20 yards. And on the Jeudy one, it should have been intercepted. If Kobe turns around and actually locates the ball, he's picking that off all day. And the one last night, Hamler's going to walk in for a touchdown if he leads them, but he underthrows them by 20 yards and it ends up being a field goal drive. And that, they could have used those extra 4 points at the end of the game. So it's like, even when he wins, he's not winning really.
That comes down to, again, you lose a little bit of oomph on your arm as you get older at 34, which is going to happen. You don't have your legs underneath you as strong underneath you to make those throws as deep. But then there's also the aspect of this goes to the head up stuff. It's in combination with the heads up stuff, because 2 of the big things you're going to hit with Russ is that you're not seeing things clearly pre-snap with the anticipation. I know this guy's going to be even at 10 yards and I can throw it, which on those throws you're talking about, that's when he needs to let it go. Instead, what he wants to see, as they always did here with Seattle, and I think some of this was Carroll's instruction, and maybe it's just hardwired in now, he wants him to see the separation on the 9 route. And that's why they say if he's even leaving, because it's the quarterback should not be in a position to wait till he sees the guy out ahead of him on the route. He needs to throw it in anticipation of the guy being out there ahead of the route. And when he waits like that, he doesn't have the arm anymore to get it pushed up that extra field 10, 15 yards, especially if he can't really step into it and he's got to kind of back foot it or be a little bit off platform with it. And that's what allows that ball to drag up. So this comes back again to if he's more understanding what he's seeing pre-snap, the safety's not going to be high over the top. If I see him even on the spot, I got to let it rip and trust my guy's going to get up the field to make that happen. And maybe some of that too, Brendan, is chemistry, new receivers, not being able to trust that guy's going to run, in Hamler, going to run the right route or get that separation, and that could be, but the great quarterback kind of have to do that as they get older, as you lose that oomph, that's why Chad Pennington did how he had to do. Chad Pennington had to get all those old man skills from the jump because he had that kind of noodle arm, weak arm. I mean, one of the probably the 32nd weakest arm of the all-starting quarterbacks when he was starting, but he threw with anticipation. He led guys. He was smart with his brain and where he realized where he needed to go and was on it.
Right. And I like I said, I listened to Coward a little bit this morning, and he talked about that thing that Marshawn was saying about how you have to go through Russ's manager if you want to talk to him. And then he was like, I watch these Broncos games and I see it doesn't look like the receivers and Wilson are on the same page. And he kind of was trying to draw a parallel there. Like maybe they're not communicating. Maybe they can't talk to him because of this manager thing. And I don't know if it was an apt comparison. I don't know if literally his own teammates can't talk to him. That would be really weird. But maybe.
Well, it goes along with the story that we heard back in the day where it's like you go to a Mariners game, you're a Seahawks teammate, you walk in the thing. We talked about you go in the box, Russell's box, and he's like, okay, and his people step up to you and they're like, please sign this NDA. What? Why you got me sign the NDA? What these are just things that are going to rub people the wrong way. And when you need to be a leader and have people who have your back, you can't do things to rub people the wrong way. And if you're playing great and you're awesome and amazing, people will maybe overlook it. But when you're struggling and not carrying the water and you're asking for all the money, then people are going to take your feet and hold them to the fire at that point. And this is why, because as a quarterback, you need to be a leader. You need to pull these guys in and say, look, we got to get on the right page here. Let's got to figure out what's going on here. But there is a little bit of that. Again, I call it the diva age of quarterback of no pictures, please. No pictures, no pictures, please. No picture. It's like, dude, you're still a football player on a team of 53 guys. I get the brand. I get the, here's where my sandwich, I'm dangerous. I get all that stuff. You can do all that stuff. But again, if you're going to be the reason Tom Brady's gotten away with doing that stuff, and even he was very slow to do that stuff long. He's almost in his 40s where he really started to unveil all that stuff. He was always a little bit, kind of conservative with that to a degree. You got to be awesome. You better be awesome.
Yeah. Have you seen the new Elvis movie yet?
I haven't had a chance to check it out yet.
Yeah, I've seen most of it, but my dad watched it the other day, and he was actually talking about it, comparing it to the Wilson thing, because the movie is about Tom Parker almost as much, maybe even more so than it is about Elvis. And there's this part in the movie where you couldn't talk to Elvis even if you were in his band. Like you had to go through Tom Parker, the Colonel, to talk to Elvis, even if you were one of his bandmates. And he was kind of drawing that comparison. It's like, hey, he's turning into Elvis. Are we going to get the fat Russell Wilson in a few years here? Have we already got the fat Russell Wilson?
Yeah. Well, you start disconnecting from reality. That's not reality. That's not human beings interacting a level. You could talk, well, that's how quarterback. No, there's a level of where this goes to on it, where it's starting to get out of control with it. And it's, again, you've got to be able to relate with every great quarterback's been able to relate with his teammates in some way, even if he's a nerd, even if he's not the cool group, even if he's truly in on the team and trying to be that leader. He's come from a sincere place and not a pre-programmed place or a place where it's like, I've written this all out in a piece of paper of how this will all go. Instead, just trusting the process if I do the things right from my end of it. And I truly am putting rather than thinking about, is this what they want me to say here? Is this the pre-right thing to say here? It's why he has that moment of saying, let's ride a week ago. In the worst of moments, it gets hammered for. It's because he's so in automated mode. It's not in just stop and take a moment to look mode. And maybe he can't. Maybe it's he got locked in on the auto programming way back when, and now it's just going to stay in the loop.
Yeah, somebody got to him on that one because he did not do that last night, by the way.
No, he got enough with that where it's like, dude, come on. You've got to, and this is maybe going to be a good thing for us long term, where if it can pull him out of that shell and he can start to get to just let this like shed this like the snake sheds its skin a little bit and just let this stuff go with this whole I'm going to manufacture this thing. Stop manufacturing, let it be what it is, and let the road take you where it may a little bit. And I don't know anything. I mean, I'm just an idiot with this on this channel, but I look at it and I go, this manufactured, I've got the 20-year vision thing ain't going in the direction you think it's going to go right now, my man. So back to the lab and re-put this back together again. And to me, it just starts with getting back to ball, making it simple, making it all about ball, and cutting around the rest of the stuff. The hand signal thing, Brendan, coming in that first game, the sheer gall and audacity to walk back into the same stadium that you just left the previous year, hand signals, I'm guessing that he had used pretty uniformly for Lockett to pick it up as early as it did.
Mhm.
And then to still try to use that against your old team and not think that they were going to pick it up. And then have a moment. I sincerely believe this, Brennan. He recognized that they had read his hand signals, couldn't change in mid-game. It was too late. So then that's why he was on the sideline going, let him know, run or pass, run or pass. I think that whole soundbite out of that Bronco game was born out of him realizing that Tyler was recognizing the signs on the field and getting it across to the defense. And the defense was then reading it a little bit. But that's to me, as I said at the time, that's him with his plate too full. I don't have time to redo the hand signs, and I got to think about it, and I got to study the hand signs. And I got to go do my commercial, and then I got to go do the flight out here to Italy, and then I got to go do this photo shoot over here. And so it's like, well, no, maybe you need to change the hand signals. Maybe you need to change.
At least he didn't go to Bob Kraft's wedding.
Oh, I know. What another horrible look. And then you're screaming at your teammates on the sideline like Brady was. Like, Jesus, dude. Again, it's read the room, man. You know what I mean? Like, take it. Like, you think this is going to come off good? And Brady takes Wednesdays off, took all of training camp off. Like, and then you're going to be screaming at your teammates on the sideline when things aren't a well-oiled machine. Like, yeah, dude, duh. You can't, we already have half the practices we used to 20 years ago. And now you're going to take off another 30% of those. And you're going to go, yeah, we're not going to be like, yeah. But again, ego comes in, right? That ego and Brady's earned the right. Can't knock him. He's won his titles. He's put his pelts up on the wall, but, maybe not as much in Russell's case in that case. And I hate it no matter who it is, really.
He's done nothing in Denver. He's done absolutely nothing except take their money and their draft picks.
Yep, it's true. It's absolutely true. And given him, there's not a lot of hope into the future on the organization right now as you look into the future of that contract, because they did kind of keep it low in the first year cap hit this year with it. They really brought that first year down, and it does start to kind of raise fairly precipitously, fairly quickly.
Yes, it does. Big Patty Daddy, thank you for the $4.99. You might disagree, but Ken Walker reminds me of Thomas Rawls, and I love it. Although Thomas would be the Walmart Kenneth Walker. Congrats on 10K. Do we need to retire the Walmart comparison now that the Broncos are owned by Walmart? And it's going to give people the wrong idea because we're obviously so into what the Broncos are doing this year.
I don't know. It's such a good shorthand. I mean, it does. Whenever you put the Walmart in front of a player, it's just it's the new poor man. I like it because it's taking over the poor man's. You used to say this guy's a poor man's this. Now you say he's just a Walmart version of that, which to me, I just like that. It makes me laugh every time I hear it. Yeah, I could see that a little bit with Rawls. He had a little bit of a way to kind of jump back against the grain like Walker can. Walker's got more of a jump cut ability to him. And as you say, it's way more of the Walmart because the suddenness, and again, I can see a little bit of this. Thomas Rawls had some suddenness to him, a little bit of the jump cut stuff to him, a little bit, but it's all just more. It's even further along with Kenneth Walker, in my opinion, where he does a jump cut, he's going to go 2 yards laterally on a guy across. His stop and start is 0 to 100 back to a 0, all in 5 steps, Brendan. He freezes these defenders. He just gets them frozen. And then once he gets their feet to stop, he restarts his feet, and he's going to restart his feet faster than you can at that point. And he just does it over and over, and they can't really counter it much because they're just not quick enough to stay with him.
Yeah, and we have another comparison for Kenneth Walker here. Heard Gale Sayers and Barry Sanders comps for K9 today. Snail, thank you for the $5. I mean, that's got to be the best case scenario for this, right?
Yeah. I mean, Closer to me. I've heard the Barry Sanders comps today a little bit. I can't do the Barry comps because I think that that's just Barry's too unique, and he was more of a juker. Barry could jump cut, but Barry was going to get you juking you in open field. He was going to cut back across the grain, reverse field. You saw a little bit of that from K9, I guess, but I just can't quite get the same spot with those two guys. Maybe Sayers, because Sayers was a jump cut guy. He would have a guy, progressing in the open field, and then he would leap across the guy's body in the open field and come back across to the guy's arms, and he just always could kind of change that direction like that. And that's definitely a lot of K9 there. So I like the Gale one. Gale had the great speed too. So that and the thing with Barry is that Barry wasn't really never struck me as a 4.3 guy. Barry was more like a 4.5 guy. He was really quick, insanely quick. I don't know if he was necessarily the long speed of K9. So I'll go with Gale. I like Gale.
Yeah, I mean, I look at K9 and he's kind of the full package. And if we're going to start turning the page to talk about the Seahawks offense a little bit from this game, he was probably our best player on offense. So that's probably a good place to start. Apparently, he has 44 carries so far this year, and he's broken 22 tackles, which gives him a missed tackle rate of 50%, which is highest in the entire NFL. So he's making people miss both breaking tackles and just shaking people. He's got speed. He's running with power. He's running with agility. The only thing we haven't really seen yet is the ability to make big plays catching the ball out of the backfield, but he hasn't had a lot of opportunities yet. So he strikes me. He's the full package, and I'm really happy about that because it was the full package thing that I wasn't sure about looking at him in college.
Yeah, I wasn't either. Didn't know if necessarily the quickness speed was going to be as much as stands out and really pops as much as it's popping. That's for sure. So he's definitely showing you something there that I wasn't sure on. The thing that is nice about this, the broken tackle rate, I think he had well over 1,100 yards last year after contact. And I think he led, all of college football, or second in college football last year with broken tackles as well. So these are also attributes that he's brought over from the college game. They're simply a part of what he's been, and he's continuing to do them, which should give you encouragement to know that we're going to be able to see this going into the future, though I think we already kind of believe that with what we've seen from him. So he's looking like a really great pick. And again, why you can see guys that are difference makers at the running back position. Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker were your two difference makers. That's where it ended. The next running backs behind that were fine, right? But Brendan, who's the next rookie? I guess we could go Dameon Pierce, maybe.
Yeah, Pierce is nice. I like Pierce.
And Pierce is really nice. The problem and the tough thing with Pierce was just he was never given any significant carries in college. So it was a lot of like, wow, why aren't they giving him more carries if he looks as good as he does at times on some of these gives at Florida? But absent that, there aren't any other running backs that are really going out there and blowing it up in the rookie years right now. And that's, again, some of this has to do with just the special talent of Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. Not special in that they're all-time special grades, but just special in that they're difference makers at the running back position versus what you get an average league-wide running back play.
Right. And I'm excited about him. He looks like he's going to have. Oh, I meant to say one thing though. On the TV, it looked like he was grabbing his groin late in that game. I was trying to figure out if he was injured or if he was just trying to adjust his cup or something.
I thought he got knocked in the nads.
Okay, because he never came out.
It was Nad's knock. It was Nad's, because he did. The Nad knock is you pull on it, but then you do the leg stiff too. It's pull leg stiff, and it's the leg stiff pull because it's that pain where you're like, oh, and you're hoping by stiffening the leg out it'll stiffen other things out. But
right,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully he's okay, because if he's not okay, then putting him back in the game at the end was silly. But hopefully you're right.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. I could be wrong, but it did appear that.
Yeah. Byron D, thank you for the $1.99. Which rookie's making the Pro Bowl? Tariq probably will, just because he's got all the picks. Eventually quarterbacks will stop throwing at him. But he can probably still get like 7 by the end of the year if he keeps this up. I mean, clearly he's got great hands, which makes sense because he used to play receiver.
Yeah. I'm trying to go through too, think in my head of NFC cornerbacks. You got Darius Slay, Trayvon Diggs, but then you start getting into the depths of it beyond that. AJ Terrell, maybe with Atlanta, though he's been a little bit down this year.
Does Ramsey get in by reputation, even though he's
Ramsey
kind
gets
of
in by
garbage?
Ramsey gets in by reputation. So you know, he could get in there probably if he does get to 7 or 8 interceptions, it'll be enough to where people will have to kind of go, we got to put him in. But yeah, he was probably your only rookie that's going to get into the Pro Bowl contention. The tackles are going to play average to a little bit above league average when it's all said and done, as I thought at the start of the year. So you're going in. That's what they've been so far to me, to my eyes. Mafi's going to be fine, but he's a development guy. He's coming along. And yeah, I don't think unless Kobe Bryant does the equivalent with Tariq on the turnovers with like 10 turnovers, I just don't think that's coming through either.
Um,
So
if a couple running backs get hurt, could Ken Walker sneak in? We've seen some very pedestrian running backs sneak in just because everyone else got hurt.
I mean, it's possible. I'm again trying to think on the running backs right now in the NFC. I mean, you know, Patterson, Miles Sanders with the Eagles,
Zeke
um,
is having a good year so far.
Saquon. It's going to be hard. Saquon's
Yeah,
bouncing back. I mean, he's going to have an uphill battle getting there from the NFC. I think it's going to take maybe some injury. He'd be like an injury replacement or a Pro Bowl
right.
alternative, alternate. I don't think I can quite see him getting there. Um, you know, and again too with the thing to monitor with this, and I don't mean to be a buzzkill with it, but we've got to acknowledge that running backs in Seattle have had a very short history of going out even full years of production. You know, so like he's got to make it through this year too from a health standpoint at that running back position, which has been a long road to cross for running backs as of recently in the Seahawks organization.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. But we may as well hope for the best. He's a guy who never had injury problems in college, right? So
Nope. Nope. He should be, hopefully he should be okay with it. So it's, you know, but he got over 20 carries here this last week, Brendan. I do worry with Rashad gone now that there's going to be that itch by Carroll to really, really work him. And he's a rookie, young kid. Just Thomas Rawls injured in his first year, get on the scene. Really, maybe had overused him there by the end, got him broken down. Chris Carson bursts on the scene, really doing well. Then he breaks down. I do worry a little bit about not having a real functional backup there right now as it
I'm
stands.
hoping Travis Homer takes some snaps from him when he comes back and he doesn't just take it all from DJ Dallas.
I would like to see that as well. Just get a little more load balance in there for we need this guy for the next couple of years here, you know.
Yeah. Jeff Speak, thank you for the $10. Said it before, but Puna Ford is not for this defense. I just feel bad for him. He's got better. Yeah, I think if Puna goes to a 4-3 defense that allows him to play one tech, he'll be right back to being a good player.
I think he will be. I think he will be. There's been times it's been weird seeing double teams really blow him back off the ball, though, at times. Like watching the Niner game on the all 22 tape, there were some times he really had it given to him on the double. But he's a 4-3. Maybe there's less of those times he gets a little more single engagement. I do think at the end of the day, his best position, Jeff, in the NFL, what he should have been and what he should have remained to be is a one tech. Let's face it, they didn't slide him to three tech because they were so like loving him as a three tech. They slid him to three tech because they had no answers at three tech. There was nobody else there to be a viable option at that point when they did so. So it was a move made more out of need and desperation than it was out of this is his natural fit.
Yeah, but I think he's not a bad player. Like even last year when he was playing three tech, PFF was still very complimentary of him. It was actually kind of weird. But this year he doesn't even have that. Like he is completely miscast right now, I think. But
Well,
I
when
like
he
him. I've always been a Puna fan.
And I think what PFF liked was he was a three tech, and then he was giving you like five. He's giving you one tech skills at the three tech position, meaning he was really able to dominate that guard, who more often than not is dealing with pass rushers from the three tech. Instead, now I've got this guy that's controlling me in the run game, and that helped them be as good as they were in stopping the run last year. And that's probably as much why PFF liked him. I didn't think they liked him as much because he was so good in the pass rush element.
Oh,
So
definitely
then
not.
so then you go to even on that, like, what's the value of a three tech run stuffer? It's like, so it's like, well, what's the value of a one tech pass rusher who can't hold up at the point of attack? I don't know. But to Jeff's bottom line point is absolutely the most important here, which is that Puna is not long probably for the Seahawk world here moving into
Yeah.
the future because it's just not a fit for what we need.
Mm-hmm. Mumbles, thank you for the $5. Brooks would be projected at 11.4 million if he doesn't make the Pro Bowl, 14.9 with. Okay, so maybe that's. I did actually just look up LJ Collier, what his fifth year option would have been. It would have been about 11 million. And I was like, I think Brooks went higher than LJ, so it would be higher, but I couldn't figure out by how much. I'm still okay with 11.4 because it's a 1-year thing, and then you just move on if he doesn't massively get better. But it's certainly not as good as we were thinking.
Well, and if you sign Roquan, you're putting 27, $28 million into the middle linebacker position next year at that point. If that's the case, that's the only other thing with that is you have a little bit of the situation of what happened at the safety position where a lot of money up into the position. Hopefully you're getting the production for that money that you're putting into it. Hopefully it's meaning that you're turning that defense if they're looking to target Raekwon. But that's the top. I can't go past 11-4.
Yeah.
That's my final offer. You know what I mean? Like if it's going 14-9, that's too much, Brendan.
He's not making the Pro Bowl. No way.
Tackles, people like tackles, man. Pro
His
Bowl
tackles are
voters
down
love
from last
tackles.
year. I think his tackles are down from last year. He was getting more tackles last year. We'll see, but I mean, he doesn't have a sack.
I don't think he will either. And look at who he's got. You got Bobby Wag's playing fine. He's going to get his. Demario Davis will get his, and then there's one other guy I was thinking of that Fred Warner will be in there. So I think they don't take more than 3. So he's not going to get in there. But I'll go 11-4. 10 was really where I was thinking. 7.5, 10 was where that was more. 11-4 stings.
Are we going to grandstand over $1 million when we're talking about a starter?
No, I'm not. But they better have a better answer over at the other side next to him. I better not be rolling out with another Barton year if that's the case.
Here's what you do: you draft Trenton Simpson, and then you have your other starting middle linebacker on a rookie contract, and then you don't give Brooks the long-term money because you've got Trenton Simpson, and he's going to be the guy you give the big contract in a few years because he's going to be one of the best linebackers in the league because he's awesome.
You let Brooks walk, gets your compensatory pick for him, and then it still makes that selection look a little bit better even at that point. I love it. Let's do it.
Ender, thank you for the $10. I'm just here driving my 14-hour day soaking up Seahawk fandom. Thanks, dudes. Go Hawks and Gino.
Hey,
and
Go
that's
Hawks.
not a bad way to turn the page to Gino a little bit because the MVP wagon kind of lost a wheel. Did not put up big numbers, did not have a great game. I think he played okay. He played fine.
Mm-hmm.
But from your perspective, what did you think about Gino's game? Was he holding on to the ball too long, or did the offensive line just let him down this time?
I think he was probably having moments in this game where he's holding onto the ball longer than he has at times in this year, where he's been a little bit more, pulling the trigger and getting the back foot and letting it rip. I thought it was interesting in looking at the Pro Football Focus grades that Tyler Lockett was so lowly rated. And part of it I wondered is that with the coverage naturally swinging to DK's way with the safety over the top every time, that took Gino's read then back to Geno Smith as his primary off the jump. And he was looking to that read and it was covered a lot of the times for whatever reason. Be it maybe Lockett just couldn't get freed up this week, whatever it was. And then now he's holding the ball, trying to go back to, option 3rd, 4th, and he doesn't like those options. So he's really wanted to see him first. There were times that there was a little quicker breakdowns and protections too against this Cardinal team. They got their 5 sacks on their end of it. So they weren't just doing those there was some coverage sacks, but there was also some stuff where it was, right from the outside, flushing him up the middle. Some of this is going to be Bowles with his defense too. And just I think it's Bowles there. I might be misspeaking, but it's the Cardinal defensive coach there with those fronts that he can provide that can confuse quarterbacks. Like we were talking about in the pregame show last week about how he had really, he really was super happy about what he'd done to Russell last year at home against Seattle and how he'd confused him. So he's a little bit unique. It's a Cardinal team that's unique offense and defensively and how they run things versus other teams in the league. They like to be odd ducks. They're the Monty Pythons of the NFL a little bit.
Yeah. Cardinals defensive coordinator is Vance Joseph.
I think I get those two confused, but he does do a lot of those exotic fronts where he'll throw it at you and it put Gino in a position of having to guess at times what he was seeing up front. And he's been very on in that guessing game here this year. Maybe a couple more times of being confused in this than he has in the past, but it's a combination, pass protection, not as great. And then him at times, not trusting what he's seeing, holding the ball too long a little bit, really just trusting the line a little bit too much.
Yeah. It was a little bit of a rough game for our rookie tackles, and I thought Damian Lewis in particular played a really bad game. PFF did not agree with me on that assessment, by the way. I don't know why, but from my perspective, Damian Lewis looked really, really rough. So it was a substandard game for the offensive line, but this is what happens when you have 2 rookies starting at tackle, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the ups and downs of that. See, that's why I say when you settle them all down with their grade, it's like both will be around a 66 PFF grade at the end of the year, right? Right around dead on, just about maybe a little bit above average, 67 maybe. Like that's where they will all float. But within that will be the ups and downs. Within that will be a game where Cross has a couple 3 penalties in a game, or where Lucas gives up 2 sacks in a particular game. That's not to be, not expected. I will say with Lucas, the thing that he's got to clean up going forward, where this is really, it's a small thing because he's so good about not allowing pressures otherwise in any other way. You're not going to finesse Russ. You're not going to finesse Russ. I was going back to an earlier discussion there. You're not going to finesse Abraham Lucas. You're not going to hit him with cross chop moves and spins, and you're going to get him like awkward. Not going to happen. He's going to be in that pocket the whole time, but you'll get him with the bull rush. And you notice those guys, I think he got long armed in this game into the back of the pocket on one particular play, but it's the bull rush that people are going to challenge him with. I have faith in the future of this because that's part of strength. Long-term strength rookies will come down the line, as he gets into the developed weight program, but that's where he is being attacked when he's attacked in that way. And that was in college too, the way guys could sometimes get to him as well as on that kind of bull rush. Luckily though, again, he's awesome in pass protection. He's ahead in pass protection with him where he's a run blocker. So it's not a big, huge issue, but it is something to kind of monitor in progress as we go forward.
Mhm. Yeah, but one thing about Gino, and maybe this shouldn't be surprising to me, but it is. He's on pace to run for more like twice as many yards as Russ did for us last year. I didn't expect that. I knew he wasn't a statue, but I'm surprised at some of they're not designed runs, but there are plenty of plays, especially in this most recent game, where he's fully willing to just tuck the ball and take off.
Yes.
And I didn't think that was going to be part of our offense at all this year, but he's willing.
Yeah. Did you not see the quarterback power runs? You didn't see that this offseason with Geno Smith?
No, I didn't
Gosh,
think we were
Brendan,
going
you
to Trey
call yourself
Lance
an
him.
analyst. You call yourself an analyst. Yeah, I didn't see it either. I thought you were going to really, really, I mean, even in training camp, they talked about this, right? Where we were calling stuff differently in the scrimmage for Geno with the lack of movement and the rollout stuff because they were trying to somewhat, protect him for his lack of mobility. Did you see the stat where he got up to, I think it was 19.5 miles per hour on the GPS gun, and Kyler got up to like his top was 2069. So he's
I
like,
did not see that.
19.5 miles an hour for Geno Smith. I did not know he had that in him, but on that 30-yard run that he had kind of the sideline, that was indeed where he got to on his speed with it. So they're using him on those quarterback keepers. We saw it twice, I think, in the Saints game where they utilized, one was for a touchdown and one where he did the very same thing, goes right up through the front door of the defense. And what you have, of course, there is you get the wide 9, right, where they split out and they're off of the center naturally. And then the guys go like this, and the line goes like this. And if the linebackers are dropping with depth into zone, the quarterback can go right up through the middle of that. And there's not a lineman looping in at that point because they're just trying to all get upfield and kind of compress the pocket in the way that they're trying to, rush it at that point. So it's a smart play by Waldron. It's ballsy, like it was my quarterback, young kid coming up thing. I might be a little bit like, can we not, like Trey Lance, we saw him get drilled on this. Like maybe we don't, we really need to do this? Like, is this the play we got to go to here? Is there not a...
I like how fast he's willing to acknowledge that taking off and running is the best thing he can do on this particular play.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's very quick to realize, yeah, this is the only way this play is going to be a positive play. And it's become, I mean, in this game, he actually ran for, I think, what was it, almost 50 yards. Like that's significant.
Geno's control of things is his most important trait that he's brought to the stage, and the one that we maybe didn't see as much as anything. And that running and the timeliness of running is a part of that. It's him having the control at the line of scrimmage and guiding and directing things, trying to take his time with things, assessing, running up tempo at times, but just looking like he has a firm handle and control. He doesn't look overwhelmed or in over his head. He doesn't look really particularly surprised over the course of a game in the way he's played. Yeah, this last week wasn't necessarily some star-making like turn that he's had in recent weeks in the way he played, but he was really solid. He played it really safe. He didn't make any real stupid decisions, didn't have any real turnover-worthy throws out there that he had. There was a one to Metcalf in the flat. That was one where it was almost Metcalf should have just made that catch as much as anything else. But everything else he was clean on, and he's remained clean on. He's got 2 interceptions on the year. He is doing everything he needs to be doing as far as what we're going to ask our quarterback to do, and then some. And I still thought, even though this week was a little bit of a dip from last few weeks, it wasn't like he had a lot of poor decision making or he suddenly really
Right.
fell off in something or made some bad throws or really inaccurate. No, he was on it, smart, doing just what we want to do from the quarterback position here.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It was a clean game. It wasn't a big game. Maybe it wasn't even a good game, but it was a clean game. And when you have a guy like Geno Smith, who is a career journeyman quarterback, those games are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't read too much into it.
No,
A few weeks ago, I made the point about Geno. You get what you pay for, but we're actually well beyond that. We're getting way more than we paid for. It's not even close.
not even close.
So
Not even close. And yeah, I think there's a little bit of that of reading the room there where I'm sure Carroll's talking to Gino in that situation as well as saying, hey, we gotta field goals or all anybody's getting in right now. This is gonna be a close game. You can feel it's a little more of a defensive battle. Let's operate this way. Let's be even a little more protective of things. Let's first, if you're playing in those games, the Lions and the Saints, and they're running the ball up and down the field, and you're like, we've got to score points. So you're gonna have to let it rip. And that's just reading that way that game kind of plays out versus other games too. And that's just a natural flow of the game too.
mhm. Mumbles, thank you for the $5. I have never heard that before. Being happy for the team we're facing to get back their best receiver. I love it. Well, look, if they don't have him, then Gerald Everett's getting 200 yards. He's having a good year anyway. And with Brooks and Barton trying to cover him, he's getting 200 yards.
Well, that's true. Pain's coming one way or another on that one, Mumbles.
Tariq Woolen against Keenan Allen would be a lot of fun, though, because that's one of the best route runners. And that's something that Tariq has not experienced yet that he might benefit from.
He could. Boy, this would be a game you'd love it if you could just have him follow Mike Williams, don't you though? Because that's a better matchup for Tariq,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's one where you won't do it because you don't operate defensively that way. But this would be one week because the Chargers are going to target Keenan Allen to Tariq and check and see if he can stay with him on his route running, and specifically for the short and intermediate routes, which is where Keenan gets most of his work done. And so that's going to be one of the key matchups, I think, as we look forward and talk about this on Thursday a bit of where one of the big spots defensively you're going to have to hold up and is that matchup. Because it's like it was with Denver in a lot of ways with Gordon Sutton in that first week, where Denver is able to put him out there on Tariq at that point and go, okay, what do you got, kid? How are you going to hold up out there against, a really, really good receiver in this league?
Yeah, yeah. And I agree with you what you said about having Mike Williams follow Tariq around. I don't know if we're going to do that, though. And
Yeah.
if I'm the Chargers, I'm doing everything I can to not allow that to happen
Yeah.
because Mike Williams doesn't get separation anyway. Good luck getting
No.
separation on Tariq Woolen.
Right. And if you're going to talk about just having the guys just looking for trust throws and he's trying to moss Tariq Woolen, yeah, have fun. Have
Yeah,
fun moss and Tariq Woolen. We'll see how that goes.
right. The Snail, thank you for the $2. Give me the best running back of the draft in the second again. Now, with the way things are going, you might be able to do that pretty consistently every year if you really want to, because I don't think you're going to see a lot of running backs go in the first going forward. There might be like one a year, like Najee Harris a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Trent Richardson is like the bad memory that a lot of these GMs have. And it's caused them to maybe even overcorrect a little bit on the running back thing.
It could have. I think it does to a degree, and you're gonna have some backs in this draft. We'll see if this does maybe start to arch things back another way as it kind of ping pongs back and forth. Because of course you got Charbonnet, you got the kid from Texas coming out in this draft. I think the kid from Ohio State, where teams maybe look at those particular guys. But this is also why it was so silly for so many people to harp on the second round being bad place to take a running back, and that somehow that's that's not the right value. It's the right value because you have first round running backs consistently falling into the second round. That is the value. I'm getting a guy, even though it's maybe for a quote unquote devalued position, that still is a guy that I'm getting I'm getting around later than I should be getting him. That's if you do things like that in a draft over the course of whatever position groups you're attacking, you're going to have mighty successful drafts. And yes, into the future, Brendan, like you said, this is why you should do it in the future as well, because it's going to probably continue. I'm going to reckon to guess Charbonnet goes into the second round. Williams may go in the first, but he's not going to go but back in the back end of the first if he goes. And that pushes that value down. That's instead of being like, well, no, we're going to carry on the first round tradition in the second round, you go, okay, now's when we strike. Now's when it's become depressed as far as value. Now when I'm getting incredible value for my pick. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. I will say for our purposes, I'm totally fine fishing for running backs in the fourth and fifth round this
Mm-hmm.
year. Like we
Yeah.
don't need the best running back in the world. I like this Ken Walker guy. Let's go get another, you know, Robert Turbin tier.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on that. I'm not necessarily needing to draft in second. It's all about value for me as far as board goes, Brendan. And so I'm not gonna look to do it going forward with another second rounder necessarily. But if the right value falls, I'm open to it. I'm not looking to do it, but this is that best player available thing. I mean, if we get the best running back in this next draft, sitting us in the second round, and we got 2 second round picks, yeah, you don't want to necessarily do it. I'm not advocating for doing it, but as the thing I look at going forward this running back room, Brendan, is health has been a situation and a problem here since beast mode left, and it has followed many running backs. And to think that it's not suddenly, to think that suddenly now this guy's the one that's going to be the healthy one. No, this guy's the one. Well, instead of doing that and hoping, wishing on a star, let's maybe operate off of recent history, which is that we do need to stack a deep running back room. And Travis Homer is a free agent. Homer, I think, is DJ Dallas has only got one more year under contract after this year. So there could be some thought process behind putting some value into running back position going forward, but I'm with you overall. Let's stay in maybe the 4th, 5th round of things.
Jeffrey A. Thistle, thank you for the $10. Still scared the script will flip. Broncos figure it out and make a deep playoff run. There were flashes of old Russ on Monday Night Football, and Geno turns back into a pumpkin. Broncos Nation will have a field day. I wouldn't worry about that one too much. And I don't know where the flashes of old Russ were supposedly on at Monday Night Football, personally.
Started out 10 to 10, I guess. That's maybe what he's saying.
I mean, he made 2 big throws in that game. One was the broken coverage where Dulich was open by like 15 yards for the touchdown. And then you had the Hamler play where he underthrew him by 15 yards anyway and blew what should have been a walk-in touchdown. So I don't know if I see it. And even if you give him that first quarter to complete 5 passes combined in the second, third, fourth, and overtime, like that's Nathan Peterman level stuff. So I'm not seeing it. I don't know. Maybe this gets a little better, but it would have to get so much better for it to even be good that it's just almost unfathomable.
Yeah, Jeffrey. I mean, it's they have so many guys on. Remember, they've got more guys on IR than anybody else in the NFL. I don't think that situation didn't get any better this last week. The coach isn't going to get better. I don't think they get anything further on this scheme. Defensively, I guess they're going to eventually get back Gregory. And so maybe that helps you a little bit there, but your Darby's gone for the year still on that side of things. I just can't see it. Not with the schedule getting tougher like it is, and not with them showing this many flaws. I mean, they're not even close right now, Jeffrey. They're not even, if they were a little closer, if there was more of they're putting up 22 points a game or 23, like they can't get out of the 16 points a game right now offensively. And that's going up against teams like the Texans, Colts without their best defensive player, perhaps, and Darius Leonard. This last week, the Chargers without 2 of their top potentially 4 players playing. It's like you go, I don't think so.
Yeah. By the way, the Chargers defense is terrible. Genuinely, Jacoby Brissett went up and down the field on them. But going into that Denver game, they had the 31st ranked offense in the NFL. So for you to not go off in that game is a terrible reflection of you.
Yeah. And it's gotten too much too, Jeffrey. It's just that you're now officially into this 5-6 game. Like, okay, we're in 6 games of this now. It's, I just don't see where it turns around for them suddenly, where the light bulb just suddenly comes in and Russell taps back in that old spirit, especially if he's as beat up as he is, Jeffrey, too. I mean, torn lat, shoulders, and hamstrings now, and probably next week it'll be another finger or something. So it's, it's not going good rate here.
I mean, they play the Jets, and the Jets, with Quinnen Williams and who's that other pass rusher they got? Jermaine Johnson. He's the rookie. Like, that pass rush could eat, and Wilson may end up deeply regretting trying to play through all this because I mean, even Jacksonville's bringing Saxonville back, right? They got Josh Allen, they got Trayvon Walker. Yeah. Like, these are teams that are going to put Wilson through a lot of pain.
I could see it. And your Bulls isn't coming back, and that Bronco line was already bad before you had injuries coming into this year when you looked at it as far as in pass protection goes. And so those issues they're not going to get them better for 2 years to magically think they'll just suddenly get better now. Hard to see. I'm open to it, Jeffrey, of that there is a possibility it could happen. There is a possibility of it, but it would take some kind of weird strike of lightning in the middle of the night on a tree that somehow, I don't know, magically twists Russell back. He's shook too. Something's with Russell's whole body language and spirit and what's going on with him. He's just, and maybe he can capture it back. But again, to think that that just turns on a heel, Brendan, is hard for me to see when it looks so much in disarray right now.
And even taking Wilson out of the equation, he's got some stuff to overcome, like that. Hackett's not getting fired mid-year. They're just stuck with him for the time being, and I'm not using it as some catch-all excuse for the way Wilson's playing, but Hackett's definitely bad. There's no doubt about that. He's
Right.
terrible.
Yeah. And he's getting hit for stuff that's like not just like, well, he can't run a team. It's like the plays don't look good. The plays are scripted like crap. They're not confusing anybody. It's very simplified kind of football they're running. Like, so not a lot of pre-snap motion. There's not like he's got this complexity that they're trying to unravel in the minutia of understanding from a team conceptual standpoint. It's that the stuff should be pretty simple to find. And that's what that play with Russell, where he's in the back of the pocket, and everyone's seen that screenshot of him with the wide open look to a tight end over the middle. You know, I've heard former players today hear guys like Shannon Sharp harp on that, going, Shannon Sharp being a tight end, like, hit the route. It's right there in front of you. Yeah. What are you not seeing there that leads you to go to that route there? And why? Because he's focused on the out. Well, look at his head. It's turned to the outside. It's turned to deep. Always looking for that deep shot, that big play to go hit, rather than why don't you make your first read underneath on the short stuff and consistently keep it there. Consistently keep it there. Don't leave it there after a play or two. Get back to
it. Right. Mumbles, thank you for the $2. He do be scrambling and he ain't writing back.
It's scrabbling, not scribbling, right?
Yeah. I didn't. It was a little bit weird when he decided to copyright that one. I gotta say that was a little. I don't know.
That was Russ-like. That was Russ-like right there. That was a little bit of Russ's influence on old Gino there. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. Stay in this humble pocket. Stay in this. Oh, you thought I was this. Let me let my play do the talking.
Yeah. You're gonna get your money after this season if you keep this up. Okay, you don't need to go chase money with some silly copyright thing.
PR campaign. Yeah, no, that's not. You don't need it. Your play is speaking enough volumes.
Mm-hmm. Indrex A, thank you for the $4.99. I love my killer bees. You guys gave me hell last week and prefer sauce over woolen, but do you guys trust Pete? Well, I trust him in some areas, and in some areas I don't. I guess that's the best way you can put it.
It's complicated. It's complicated. Brendan's in this place. It's just, it's tough with certain respects on Pete. As definitely has been said, you've got to give him some credit here for what's going on offensively, because he has truly adopted a new offense here that goes against his natural inclination and stylings. His defense has been horrific through a lot of this year at times. Giving up 30 plus points a game for a defensive minded head coach, is really just kind of unacceptable. It just is, especially when it's been consistently a part of this team for 3 years now at times. It's just something that will get stuck. But then you go, okay, but then there's the development. There's the young guys looking good. There's, getting out on Russell in that situation and being willing to move him, which, it's looking easier as a decision for them now with people looking at Russ. But at the time, they were getting really flamed for having the gall and the audacity to make that move. And it does look like, so it's like, you got to give him credit on one side. I don't want to not do that. It just would be nice if we could get just to have that all that good, and then just give me at least an average defense. Okay, just do that. Just bring me that all the good player development, offense, new offensive man, but just to have not a league worst defense as a defensive minded head coach. And I can really start giving Pete more of my backing on what he's doing here, even though he's starting to win me overall with where he's put this team and what he's done and what he's accomplished there this year, knowing what they had going into it. This team with $40 million plus dead money moved on from 2 Hall of Famers this offseason. And they're competing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, maybe it was just ditch the 2-man fronts, ditch Cody Barton, and we're good now. We'll see. We'll see in the coming weeks, hopefully.
It's possible. I think it's understandable why it's a good step in the direction, because that front was setting yourself up to fail. So it was understandable why it was failing. There's a reason nobody else is running that kind of front in football.
Renown Rivers PNW, thank you for the $4.99. We should definitely have Lockett mentor a young receiver in the next 1 to 2 years. Need the next young hands specialist soon. Yeah, I mean, there will definitely come a time when we should do that. I'm just not convinced it should be this offseason.
Folks out on Eskridge, Brendan. Like they are out.
I mean, well, hey, we used him like a real receiver. We didn't just use him as a.
I know.
I mean, he ran real routes.
I get why people would be if they are a little out on Eskridge and they've seen enough for it. He's doing the injury and consistency. I don't know, but he has looked better. I think that they'd like. I'm still like to see if maybe we can somehow salvage that. And Lockett would be they're very similar size players, even though their games are very different. Lockett would be a good guy to mentor him if he can get into that place of finding some healthiness and getting, somewhat keeping himself above guard. But I'm not anti almost any position looking at outside of like tackles or something like that going in this draft. As far as if it's best player available, it's truly that we're operating for that point, then you can sign me up for it. I just don't want to drift to where, again, you do that situation where I'm turning down a 95 center so I can go get an 87 wide receiver if we're going by matting rings, right? That's what I'm getting from a potential standpoint. I'd rather go for the
Right.
95 potential on the position that's depth level as well as need.
Yeah. Also, you can mentor after you're retired, as we've seen
Yeah.
from many of these Seahawks. There's been a
Yeah.
lot of mentoring by retired players.
That very good point, man. I mean, that's been a part that they've set up here as a standard here, and I imagine that's going to continue going forward.
Right. And look at what Sherman. I have to believe what Woolen is doing this year. Some of it has to do with Sherman.
100%.
Mhm.
100%. Sherman's gone down this road of doing the wide receiver convent to quarterback, and he knows exactly what Pete's requires from the position as much as anybody else out there. It's like giving you it's like Sherman having a clone come along that's been like Gattaca genetically modified to be improved upon his natural state. And like, he's then getting to teach that kid like a father to son. And it's like, yeah, I see why that could work.
Uh,
That's, yeah.
Sometimes a player gets drafted by a team and it just feels right. Like
Mhm.
when Ed Reed got drafted by the Ravens. I was a little kid when that happened. I was barely a teenager, but I
Yeah,
still knew that felt right somehow.
it
I could
did.
tell.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about Tariq and the Seahawks. It just made sense.
It did. It was when you saw it go, you go, "Oh, this is a wonderful fit. This is the beautiful fit and a beautiful pairing with Carroll and him and that, and to have Sherman built into this now along with that to help in that development. It's just the kid's got everything that he could ask for as far as the resources to turn into that guy and to be that next upper echelon corner in this league. And he already has the natural talent, but now he's got the other thing that a lot of guys don't get to have at the league, which is the actual good coaching to get there, the good guys in your ear to give you the right advice to get to that next step, and all the ways that off the field, on the field, all that. So he's going to have quite a support group for that to make this happen a little bit. And that's why I say I've got a lot of confidence as we go on that this is not just a flash in the pan. This is a kid who's going to be top 3 cornerback in this league, if not better than that, going into the future very soon. And I say the question on the Sauce Gardner, I would say we were saying Goss before, but it might start to get harder for me to make that Sauce pick. I might have to start leaning back over here to Tariq because Sauce will get you your pass breakups. I don't think Sauce is taking away the ball as much as Tariq is.
Yeah. Still really like Sauce though.
I love him.
He's having a good year,
It's
but
not to
you're
take
right.
anything away from Sauce. It's the more about the greatness of Tariq or the potential greatness of Tariq. I don't want to put that on him too early, but the
Mhm,
potential of that there is really more than anything else. The high end, the top end, where his ceiling lies.
mhm. Okay, so one last question I got for you about this offense because it was a pretty dry game from the offense overall. We talked about Ken Walker, Gino, the offensive line. The only other big part of this game to me was Noah Fant. He had a very weird game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
He led the team in receptions and receiving yards, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But he also had the one drop. He had that weird play that people in Discord couldn't stop talking about where he like stopped to stiff arm somebody. Apparently that's his move, by the way. Apparently that's just his trademark move.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
like that
know.
was the old Gronk deal Gronk could do, but Gronk could run then run you over, and he can't run over like Gronk could. So yeah, it's the club move,
Yeah.
the club spin, and then what Gronk would do is he's so strong, he'd club the guy, send him to the sideline in a ball, and then spin and roll up the field out of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. Um,
So where are you with Noah Fant overall through 6 games? Because he's obviously going to be here next year, but beyond that, like, what are you thinking about him?
Well, I think that he's a guy that is probably very close to what he's been in his career here, which is that he's not going to be a dynamic tight end up at the likes of some of the special guys you have in the league as far as just receiving the ball goes. But does that mean that he has no value or that he's just an average guy? No. Can we say maybe he falls a little bit between in where he is? He's a good move tight into this league, a good upper level move. He's got some good natural skill to be able to create good early separation. I think the Seahawks are just kind of figuring out how to use him, Brendan. Let's remember he's just arriving at the team and kind of just coming along with this offense and first time with Gino. And so there's probably some of that, development going on. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Noah starts to get more productive the more we go on this year as he continues to kind of come forward with this. what I really liked with his game and what I really liked with Disley this last week, and looking at the numbers and PFF and going back and watching the game, they give you a very complete game from the tight end standpoint.
Hmm.
Need you to catch the ball, need you to run block, need you to pass block. And their scores were pretty solid all the way across the line in that for both players, on top of being well-rated players throughout the course of the game. You're having a really good opportunity here of running these three tight. It's a unique thing to you. These three tight end sets that you run out, where you can really do anything out of those three tight end sets, and you put the defenses into the bind. What personnel grouping are you going to bring out? Do you want to go three tight end sets and try to run out base? You're going to just run nickel? You run nickel, or we'll run it down your throat nickel. We'll stack three tight ends to one side and then run right over the top of it. If you're going to run nickel, if you're going to run light. So how do you combat that? But the key on that, Brendan, then the key on to make it most effective is that you can do anything on it. We can be dynamic running, we can be dynamic passing. And that's what they're doing out of it right now with those guys, is that because those guys are being kind of complete tight ends in what they're doing, that's opening that door to be able to then use those three tight end sets that much more. And Parkinson's with this. I know he wasn't as well rated this game, and I know he's had some bad rated games at times this year, but to my eyes, he's been okay and he's been solid. And what they've asked him to do is that third tight end. And that's the thing that gets me as much intrigued for this offense, because it's the unique thing I see within this offense is how much they operate with those three tight ends versus how much that's really used throughout the rest of the league.
Yeah, that's probably the most interesting thing this offense has done this year, utilizing the three tight ends as much as they are.
Yeah.
I would we are seeing some outside runs, which is good. We're seeing a little bit of jet sweep stuff, although it feels like it's been a minute since I've seen one.
Didn't do any of this last week. Not one fly sweep this last week.
Yeah, so I don't know if they've just decided that our interior offensive linemen are too slow to get out there and throw those blocks. Like, like I said, Damian Lewis had this terrible game, and part of it is just he can't move quick enough to make these blocks. So maybe that's a big part of it. I don't know.
They've got some reason to not be running as much as little as they are when it's so more often used in all these other offenses across the board that run the West Coast. And with those coaches that have shown it can be so dynamic when you utilize it. I don't have an explanation for it, Brendan. I'm a little bit, it's odd that they don't put it in more. When they do it, they're effective with it. That's the other thing, Brendan. I'd understand if it's like, well, you don't have guys that can move to the spot to do it. Yeah, but we've probably run 4 fly sweeps this year, and all of them have been for really good gains. So like if it's like, we don't trust this to do that, well, don't trust him, but just run it and see if it's effective, because the defense is all in on stopping your inside runs. Because to me, defenses are still gearing up to stay up over the top of that A gap. And some of your biggest runs this last week had to do with the times where you got it outside with Kenneth Walker to the edges and let him attack on the outside. And I think part of that is, again, because you get so much congestion inside with these defenses really harping in on the inside runs that Seattle's has been obsessed with for years in their offense.
Yeah. So hopefully we just keep building on it. But yeah, the three tight end stuff, very fun.
And I like Fant. I think we just have to, it's a little bit like I said, the Jordan Brooks. You kind of know what he is at this point. We got to look at him outside of he was the 20th overall selection in the first round 4 years ago, and look at him as more of he's a guy that'll get you 600 yards receiving in the year. He'll block well for you. He can be a dynamic guy occasionally in the stretch aspect of the tight end play, right? He can get you the 25 yards up the seam or run you a route deeper down the field, because he does have a little bit of some quickness to him that's unique to his size, but just not ever going to be probably into the star realm that maybe the Broncos thought when they were drafting him originally.
Right. And I think there's been a little bit of bad luck there. Like, he's had some big plays called back due to penalty this year. Don't be surprised if at some point this year he has that big 130-yard game or something like that. It can happen for sure.
Definitely, especially if we can get to a spot with some more mismatches and with some linebackers and stuff at that point where you can dictate some of that.
Right. The Snail, thank you for the $2. Great show tonight, Bees. It was spicy. It was.
We had a little bit of that. We had some ghost peppers tonight before the show, guys.
Yeah, I thought about doing the ghost pepper thing when I hit 10,000 subscribers, but I'm not going to do that.
It just looks like sheer pain to me. It looks like one of those things. The second you do it, you're regretting the decision. I don't see anybody going, well, that was fun, after they're just,
yeah, I actually, one of my best friends totally no-sold it a ghost pepper. He ate it and was like, okay. Like, wow. he just took it. In fact, he thought he got a defective one. He was like, this cannot be a real ghost pepper, but it did not affect him.
Some people have that internal thing where they can handle it. I wouldn't. I'd be just sitting there, dumping water, milk down my gullet, mixing them, putting it down. Like it would not be a fun time for me. So I go, you guys are going to have to make do with me not doing that one.
Mhm.
Tears.
Right. Yeah. Barry Soy Toro, thank you for the $10. Just began watching from the start. Brendan had a good analogy about not wanting to be the X scrolling through the XGF's Instagram, but we are the X scrolling and thinking, thank Zeus, we broke up. That is true.
It is. I think it's also unique too. It's like it's also to relate it to that metaphor. It's like, yeah, you're viewing on the Instagram, but it's also that if your ex is a flaming hot mess by the end of the year, you get $10,000. So like there's a little bit of a built-in benefit to us in the failure of the ex, which would make it a little more unique from real life, because you're going, yeah, but we actually get something by the back of this deal. And we're getting more and more intrigued, Brendan, because of course the draft pick is looking so good.
Yeah. And also, there's just something insane about the fact that you literally bought out at the exact right moment, more or less.
Yeah.
Like, if you had tried to do this next year, you're not getting anything for Wilson if
Yeah.
he played like this. Like, it's like you literally sold your Enron stock in September of 2000.
Yeah. Yeah. Or got out of a house in 2006, right at the end of the year. Like
Right.
it's exactly that. So, and it doesn't happen, to Brendan's point. This just doesn't happen to football. Most time when you're offloading an assets like Matt Ryan, well, he's at the end, we can get maybe a this for it, or it's a Carson Wentz, so we can get kind of this for it, I guess. Or you got top of the mark returns and assets on this, when right at the end of him going off that cliff. So it just makes it just sort of just, it makes it amazing, and something that we definitely are going to have to ponder quite a bit on and look at in historical terms on this one.
Oh, yeah. And I think, I don't know what we're going to do with these picks. It's hard to know. It may not be the return that the Cowboys got on Herschel Walker, but given the fact that the player that we gave up is turned into an immediate net negative,
Mm-hmm.
I think we will be looking at this as one of the most one-sided trades ever. Like, this is going to sound mean, but when we traded Wilson, we also gave up a fourth-round pick that I believe turned into Ioma Uzarike.
Right.
Is he going to end up being a more valuable player for the Broncos than Wilson?
I think what they're going to do eventually on this is they have no choice to cut bait. So if you don't have choice to cut bait, your only upper opportunity is to double down. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's sunk cost, but at that point, what that means to me is that then you are going to put Russell at least into a position to be functional, unless he's completely fallen off a cliff. And I can't get to the full point where I go, he's just non-functional as a quarterback, no matter the scenario. Because right now, the scenario is he doesn't have running backs. He's got some questions at receiver. His line in pass protection is probably bad, if not horrible. And that if you start rounding out some of those factors into the future, maybe you get a better version of Russ. And I think that is feasible into the future. I'm not certain of it, but I think there's a good possibility of that if you go forward. I think that's going to get him his value. But this year, yeah, probably. I mean, Russ has got that offense at a standstill right now, Brennan. They're at a
Yeah, but
complete
okay,
standstill.
but here's the thing. If he becomes functional on that contract, that is not really adding value. That is
No.
still, you're like Ennis Cantor when he was on a max contract
Mm-hmm.
for, I think it was the Thunder,
Yeah.
and he was okay, he could score, but he was so bad on defense, he was a net negative. It didn't matter that he could score.
Yeah.
Like he's still not helping.
This is that turn that I think I feel like we've hit where Brendan with the quarterback position. This is the turn where it's, you got to spend, got to pay him, got to spend, got to pay him. Anybody, everybody, they all got to get paid, all got to get money. Next guy up, make more. And then you eventually get to the spot where you go, wait a second, this is getting too far outside the lines. We're now seeing these guys getting paid like Deshaun Watson, $250 million guaranteed with all of his questions and off the field stuff. Russell being paid before he's even taken a snap in Denver. Kyler Murray somehow forcing the Cardinals over a barrel to give him a contract that I don't think they really wanted to give him at this point in time, and looks horrible in retrospect. I think we come back to the line on this where we start to see this turn in the NFL from the smart organizations who look forward to this and saying, rather than trying to be the next team to jump to the head of the line, to be the next team to pay the next quarterback the highest mark on the board, let's try to actually find quarterback value here. Let's not maybe operate from the simplistic functionality that there's great quarterbacks and there's crap quarterbacks and there's nothing else in between. There's no level of nuance in between. There's no levels of quarterback play in between that. And that's where I think we need a smart franchise will get to, because they can build so much of a better team on the back end of it by not putting all those assets into just this one player.
So what you're saying is Lamar should have taken that contract.
Oh yeah, I would say
Yeah,
that
this
as well.
might have been the final year of the quarterback bubble.
Yeah,
That
I
was the
think
time to
so.
cash in.
I think it's Lamar's playing a dangerous game here. I do think he'll get paid on that, but I do think that, yes, you're right. I think that we're getting very close to this. You're looking at quarterback decision after decision of guys making a lot of money on this, that guys are looking back in retrospect going, ooh, were we sure on that one? Was that one's maybe we didn't, I mean, Carolina's 18 million for Donald and 18 million for Baker. And yeah, maybe this isn't. I mean, Browns right now are one of the highest scoring teams in the league, right? How much?
Hmm.
What's Jacoby Brissett making? Detroit Lions this year, one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL. Absent this week ago where they got shut out, with Jared Goff, so. Let's maybe reevaluate this, NFL. Maybe we don't need to make this as simple. Maybe it's not just a binary decision, and that there's actually a lot of numbers in between that we can maybe land at. And it's about building value and team value. And that's what we've done with Geno here, $7 million contract, but he's giving you essentially the equivalent of a $40 million deal,
Yeah.
And I'll say this: if you're going to be a quarterback and take that money, you better elevate those around you and not expect everybody else to elevate you.
Right.
That is the part where Russell's got that lost here. And that a lot of these quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers too, they get it twisted. You're going to command all that money. You're going to ask for all that percentage. Don't tell me all the time that now I need my offensive line and my receiver. Give me a running back. You know what happens if I don't have my running back? I get saucy, but I'm a running back. And yeah, one or two tight ends too. Give me a good blocker and pass protect. Give me one that can catch. Okay. All this, and we give you and the money too.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to something I said in the video this morning where, talking about Hackett. Yes, Hackett sucks. But you know who else sucks? Adam Gase. Did Peyton Manning curl up into a ball when Adam Gase was his offensive coordinator? No.
Mm-hmm.
He broke the touchdown record.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't let Adam Gase be the excuse for why, oh, I'm terrible now. It's all this guy's fault. No, he was like, okay, I'm just going to run everything, I guess. And he won MVP. So there are things that you can do as a quarterback to overcome all that stuff. And he's not.
Especially when you've been in this league for 11, 12 years and you've had the time to build your game up to get to that point. It doesn't happen overnight, doesn't happen in your early 20s, but by this point, that stuff from the shoulders up should start to inject itself more into your game than we're seeing right now of Russell. And that's the part that he can still fix. He has control over it. But part of this comes down to the accountability and taking responsibility for the fact I have to fix this in my game. My game is not just good enough as it is. My stuff doesn't stink kind of attitude as I apply to it. No, it stinks. So what's smelling? Change your diaper, get to the next stage of this thing, and you might be able to get yourself a little bit more top end of your career.
I agree. Scarecrow Bar 66, thank you for the $2. Congrats on 10K. Quit your job. Well, not if you're only going to send me $2, man. I like my job the way that it is.
Yeah. I keep telling Brendan someday, Scarecrow. I tell him he's going to get there someday. He's going to have to make that choice. He tells me he's pessimistic. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. You might be surprised, Brendan.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess. I'm not opposed to it. But yeah, it's too early for that conversation. Fat Daddy Stacks, thank you for the $5. Wide receiver Esup Winston signed to practice squad and Sidney Jones up for trade. Thoughts? Yes, we should talk about the Sidney Jones thing. Now, the Winston receiver guy, I know nothing about. I don't know if you do, but I know nothing about him.
There's nothing worth really talking about with Esup Winston. It's just has to do with you've got the worry with Marquise Goodwin, I think the injury thing there, and you've had some guys beat up a little bit. So that's just to give you a body for the practice field as much as anything else. I don't know anything about him, but he screams of kind of fringe roster guy. And right now with having guys like DK, Tyler, Eskridge out there on the field, we got Penny Hart's down, I believe, for an injury too. So this is just to give you a little bit of a numbers game with the receivers to make sure you got some insurance there so you don't get too short staffed with nobody who knows the routes or knows the playbook. Sidney Jones is a pretty easy one, I think, here. This is the Seahawks trying to get a little bit of value on an asset that they're not going to keep beyond this year and who doesn't have really a pathway to get on the field. He had a very close ranking with Michael Jackson playing basically split role there on the outside in this past game. Michael Jackson's a significantly more cheaper player. You have Trey Brown coming back. You feel like you have good insurance for the position. Maybe you can find a team out there willing to take on his contract and throw you a 5th or 6th round pick because they have a need at the cornerback position. And that's all they're trying to do there. So it's a little bit of a fishing expedition. We'll see if they can pull that off. But it has to do with really the strength and streaks development as much as anything there.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Sidney Jones can play. He's not a bad player, but he's got no place here. So
Yeah.
let him go play somewhere. This isn't good for him. At this point, it's not really good for us to have him there. Like you got to, I think you got to trade at least one of Artie Burns or Sidney Jones. Why are you letting these veterans with something left to give the NFL just cling onto your roster for no real reason?
Yeah, agreed. And it's again, nope, they're 1 year situations here, so they're not long term, and it's a good way to get some value back on guys around the trade deadline. So I like the Seahawks are doing it. It's as I would hope they would in this kind of situation, rather than just sitting on them.
Yeah, fifth round pick.
I think it's going to be hard to get a fifth round pick for a half a year of him. I think you're going to probably get like a sixth,
Yeah,
seventh.
okay. All right. I'm not look, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you save money
That's
and you
another.
don't lose anything that you really care about that much. So I'm
So
fine with whatever.
that's a big part of this is that you end up coming out of it from I think like $1 million in savings as well. So you get the sixth round pick and $1 million of savings. Could be helpful.
Last note, I guess we restructured Gabe Jackson on Saturday.
Hmm.
Saved or pushed about 1.5 million, a little bit less than 1.5 million to 2023, which makes it slightly harder to move on from him next year, but it's still like $4 million to do it. So you can still do it if you want to, but there's got to be a reason for it, right? Like you don't just do it for fun.
Yes. No, it absolutely means another move's coming. It's obviously one of two things. You're either signing a contract extension from within on your own team, or you're going to make a trade. It's one of those two things that is coming down the pike here soon. It's going to happen. They don't do that. There's no other reason to do this type of move at that point. So 100%, something is en route here. I don't know exactly what it is. It's not a significant amount of money, but it again doesn't happen unless there's something secondary as a move coming down the track here. There's just no reason to do it otherwise.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what it could be. I feel like it's going to be some very small thing for a player that we don't know very much about
Hmm.
because the amount of money we saved was so small.
Yeah.
Maybe we're bringing in safety because we've got Ryan Neal and Quandre Diggs and nothing else that we trust because Josh Jones is really really bad. Maybe it's interior guard depth because Gabe Jackson got hurt. Maybe you want to try to improve your depth there a little bit. I don't know. It's probably going to be something small. I don't think we're trading for Lamar Jackson or something.
No, I think it's going to be along the lines of a Quandre Diggs trade you made a couple years ago, or a Carlos Dunlap deal, and you're probably kind of trying to circle around something like that. That will be help the team, not significantly, but just give the team an injection, and you're not going to give up a lot of assets to do so either on the other end of it. I mean, they're not going to give up anything more, I wouldn't think, than like a fifth round at most here, and that's on the high side of things. So they're probably going to target a good secondary player to help the team out, round out some depth. I think you're right about strong safety being another likely, not strong safety, middle linebacker. Those would be the two that jump out to me.
Big Patty Daddy, thank you for the $1.99. Brendan, what are you benching, bro? Got to be 405. I have no idea what I'm benching. Not a clue.
Yeah, I'm not much on the benches as much anymore. I do a little bit of the free weights myself, Big Patty, but I'm definitely nowhere near no 350. So 405. I mean, whatever. I'm
Yeah.
nowhere 300 either. So
Well, no, it wasn't a bench. The Jalen Hurts thing was the 600-pound Jalen Hurts thing. That wasn't a bench. What do they call that? Where you have it up on your shoulders and then you?
squat or
Yeah, I
deadlift.
think it was a squat.
Okay.
It was either a squat or a deadlift, but that was pretty cool. But yeah, I have no idea what mine is.
I could probably get two at my age right now. I could probably get about 230, 240 up. That's probably my one rep right now is about as far as I can go.
Mhm.
I'd feel confident I get that, but not much past.
Lazy, thank you for the $1.99 trade for Xavier Woods. Yeah, that's the kind of trade I'm talking about. A not great but decent player who can hold us over for the rest of the year. I kind
Yep.
of always liked Xavier Woods as a safety.
Yeah, I like him too. I'm good with that move, Lazy, and I agree with Brendan. It's the type of move that you're looking to make here, where it's a little under the radar, but it's something to help improve over what you're getting from one of two positions that have been at near league worst for you versus the rest of the league.
Mhm. And I think that's about it for today, man. We went over this game real well. It was a fun, good game. Defense took many steps forward. Offense kept it clean, even though they were not explosive, even though they weren't great. And I think Seahawks fans are mostly feeling pretty good right now. We're better than a lot of people thought, and the Broncos are a lot worse than people thought. So overall, life is good.
Life is very good. It's fun that you watching some of the painful reactions by some of the content creators for those Denver folks out there, and they're having a tough run of it. I can certainly recognize some of the feelings they're feeling. But no, look, this has been a season we were hopeful for, but it's a season that should be giving us nothing but encouragement going forward. We don't know where it's going to go or how it's going to go. The schedule gets tougher for sure. But you certainly, I think, have more to be encouraged about than you have to be dismayed about. Like you said, you just played the most complete game of the season on really all sides of the ball. So it's you feel really good about that. Where this year it seems like one side goes good, the other side's bad. One side's bad, the other side's good. So I was very encouraged by what we saw today, and hopefully they're taking steps forward here as to start to lock this in. And like we've seen with the defense before, Brendan. I mean, we can't deny last 2 years start out really rough, but start to round things back together into shape. And maybe there's, I'm not going to say a purposeful element to that, but an ability to maybe replicate that again this year if they're just sort of incorporating the same kind of designs that they did the last 2 seasons to fix it.
Yeah. I genuinely do think getting rid of the 2-man fronts is going to make everything go a lot better. So if that's gone, we're good.
Yep. It seems to me the straightforward thing, and I agree. I just that thing was doing nothing for us. So let's just throw that one in the trash. Let's just put that one in the bottom of the ocean. We'll put that in a nice little chest, and we'll weight it down with some weights, and we're gonna let that one go. Okay.
Big Patty Daddy, thank you for the $1.99. When you gonna get me on the show? One of these days, man. One of these days. I mean, we already went 2.5 hours tonight with just 2 people, though, is the thing. It's like you add other people to the show, we're going to be here all night. I'm going to do my 10-hour celebration stream here because we're going to just be here forever.
I'm converting Brendan into a long streamer here eventually. He's by a year from now, I'd be like, how the hell are they getting these 5.5-hour streams? Damn you, Brendan.
Yeah. I am actually this Saturday going to do a 10-hour stream to celebrate 10K.
Oh, let's go, Brendan. Well, I'll jump in the chat for sure and say what's up over there. So
yeah, I mean, I might do one of those like sleep streams that they do on Twitch with the girls where they like stream when they're asleep, but I'm going to do it.
Hell yeah, man. I think it'd be awesome. It'll definitely help the channel too. So.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming out today. We had well over 350 people for a good chunk of the stream. Had 300 pretty much the entire time at least. And we had a great show. So thank you everybody for coming out. Thank you to Brandon for being part of the show tonight.
My pleasure.
Thursday, we return to his channel to talk about the Chargers. So put that on your calendars, 8:00.
Talk about this Charger win that's coming up.
I'm starting to feel it, man. I'm starting to feel it.
Hey, they got some injuries. They got some holes. That's all I'm saying. Short week.
And that's what we got. So we're 3-3. The division does not look that good. The division looks like it was a little overhyped. And maybe why not dream big? This is why you can't be on the tank train. This is why you can't completely punt on a season because you never know. You never know. And right now it's potentially something unexpectedly special could be happening. If the defense can play the way they did on Sunday and the offense can play the way they did the previous 3 weeks, you've got something really good maybe. But we will see going forward. And before we sign off, as always, especially after a win, we got to do it.
Oh, you got to let them know.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.